Good afternoon. We're opening the public session of the City of Laredo and the Laredo Firefighters Association Local 872 Collective Bargaining Session for 2022. Today's September 22nd, 2022. We're opening at 1:21 p.m. It was posted for 1:10 p.m. And I have passed around the signature pages and okay, I have all my team that has signed. 6. And I believe, do you have all your team here? Is there anybody
Yes.
we need to
No,
wait for on signature?
this is it.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you. So we have a quorum. There. Okay, the first thing I wanted to address is that our extension, the impasse extension agreement is up to Monday, September 26, 2022. In an effort to continue the good faith bargaining and negotiations for this fire contract, I have prepared a second extension for consideration from the city. The city would like to continue its good faith bargaining with the fire union. And this would be the second impasse extension agreement pursuant to Chapter 174, which is the statutory ability to extend the agreement 15 days at a time. And it would be from the time period of September 26, which would be day 0. And then the 15 days would end on October 11th, 2022. And so we're proposing a second extension for the fire union's consideration.
Okay, we can go and talk about this at the end, depending on how this meeting goes.
Okay. Well, yes, just we're proposing it, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Yeah. We're here to bargain in good faith, and we're here to discuss the issues, especially the difficult ones. And so that's why we're proposing it at the beginning, because we have Monday coming up.
Okay.
The second item that I would like to do is we needed to make an amendment to the estimated cost for the city proposal.
Okay.
That we have played, the stuff that we've placed up to September 15th. And I'm passing it along. I'll go through with what the amendment was. It just shows the actual correct cost. And on this line item, right here. And the amendment here is actually on the prior cost that we had done with regard to the pension, where we had proposed to put 0.25 cents for your, or 0.25% on the conditions that were outlined in the in Article 30 for years 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the 5-year contract. When you look across the board, each year it was an expense of $105,409. The prior one, the prior total, there was a formula error, and so that it showed the total as $105,409. It didn't total up the 5 years, so that was corrected, and the total for that pension shows that that additional 1% spread evenly across years 1 through 4 of the proposed contract with the conditions would actually equal $1.486 million, bringing the actual total to the amount of new monies that we have placed to the table to be $11,082,976. So there was a little bit, we just wanted to have the correct costing of what we've placed on the table, and the money, the estimated monies that we've placed have gone up a little bit just based on the correction of that formula. So we just wanted to point that out and give you that. And this is based on what the city's proposals are currently.
But if it's over 4 years, you're calculating an extra year into it, aren't you?
1, 2,
5 years.
Yes, but you're saying spread evenly over 4 years.
Oh,
You're-
correction.
you're-
well, so, no, so we're 1%,
Mhm.
we're adding an additional 0.25 in year one.
Mhm.
Then on top of that 0.25, then we're gonna add an additional 0.25. So when we put the 0.25 in for the first year, we have to continue carrying that across the 5-year contract, so that when we add the additional 0.25% we put for each year, it would total a 1% increase. So it's not just a one-time payment, because then we would only be, it wouldn't be a 1%, it would be only a 0.25 if you only counted it.
So you're stating that it'll be over year 1 through 4?
Right, so what we proposed was a 0.25 for each year of 1, 2, 3, and 4, which would total an increase over the total contract of 1%. We loaded it up on the front so that it would be beneficial to the pension. We could have loaded it onto the back, but we went ahead and loaded it onto the front because the pension has an issue that needs to be addressed more immediately.
Mhm.
And those percentages are also based on the conditions that are outlined in the Article 30 of the city's proposal. But yes, for instance, the year 1 0.25%, that is a cost that we have to carry for each of the 5 years of the proposed contract in order to maintain that 0.25 that we're adding on to the contribution to the pension. Does that make sense?
So just point of clarification, you're still proposing that be tied to the firefighter getting 1%?
Well, what we have talked about that, and we're working on our proposal, but when we were talking about, I think we clarified that at the last meeting. When we were talking about the addition of the 1%, it would also, the 1% was the amendment to choosing one of the plans that changes the benefits. So
you're referring to the city's proposal, and that proposal's, what is written down is
Right.
tying it to the 1%, not to a dollar
right,
change.
and that's why I'm saying, because we're just starting the meeting, and one of the things I wanted to do was correct the cost of the proposals that we had placed on the table. But as we discussed with regard to the Article 30 retirement at the last meeting, the expectation is that the member from the city is that the membership, the 1% was an amendment tied to one of the plan changes. The years of amortization that the actuary said needs to get under control, or at least at 30 or under 30 years, correct? So we had that discussion. I think that both sides are on the same position, that changes to the benefits need to be made. Firefighters need to contribute an additional 1%. And the additional condition was that the citizen members of the board be citizens who are not tied to receiving benefits or anybody receiving benefits. And I know there was a question on that as to whether that's legal, or we can obligate the board to do that. And the answer is there's nothing legally that would prohibit or prevent that. The money and the city's contribution, we're already contributing approximately $9 million to the pension already. This is in addition to that contribution, And the addition to the contribution has the condition that we're looking for a board that is objective and that could look at what the benefits in the plan are and make decisions based on that plan, and they don't have a bias where they're going to be affected by it. And that's what the purpose and the intent of those two citizen members of the board are. And it would be, that's the condition that we're placing on the money to, the addition of that money. And that is a policy that the board can adopt if they so choose to accept our additional contribution. Okay, is there any other questions on that one? Are there any other questions on the amended costing of what the city's proposals are as of right now, which are the ones that were placed as of 9/15/22? Along that line, we had, the city side had requested information on retirement and the benefits, and we didn't know if you had that prepared to present to us today. That was one of the things that we needed to look at and consider as we're preparing our counter proposal or amended proposal. I can't remember where we're at on that. Okay.
Ten? So like the black one? What'd you see? Oh.
I'm gonna ask you.
Does everybody have a copy?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think you had asked for a list of last 3 years of retirees and their monthly benefit and the rank. So we went ahead and also did the comparison of what it would look like in the future and what the difference is between what they're getting and the proposed changes as far as excluding overtime from the final monthly gross benefit.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So let's go, just so I understand what the columns are. For instance, on the first one, it was retiree number 1, calendar year 2019, and the rank was a captain.
Sure.
That captain had 26.5 years of service.
Mhm.
And this gross monthly benefit amount, that is on the current plan. Is this one the
Yes.
current plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that current plan, the gross monthly benefit amount shows to be $9,649.51, and that's monthly, correct?
Correct.
The next column is titled Gross Monthly Benefit Amount to Exclude Overtime Except Premium Overtime. That is the column that would reflect the changes from both Plan and A,
Yes.
or and Plan A and B?
Both
If-
plans are doing the same thing as far as excluding overtime, and they're raising our drop age from the current. Both plans are doing that.
So they're excluding overtime?
All overtime, except premium overtime is what's federally mandated for firefighters since we work more than 40 hours a week.
We'll get into that in a minute. So excluding overtime and dropping the retirement age?
Raising the drop age.
Oh, raise, sorry.
Yeah, the drop
and-
is an option for firefighters, but they have to
Stay longer for that.
stay longer.
Okay.
We're trying to encourage our firefighters to stay longer, be less time on the pension fund.
Okay. So you're trying to encourage retention.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, before we go into the number, exclude overtime except premium overtime. So premium overtime is basically the mandatory overtime that is required because you work a longer shift than a 40-hour shift. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not, I guess it is required, but I mean, it's our regular work hours. We just get paid a premium if we actually work those hours, actual hours worked. So if we take personal leave, we don't get paid that,
The premium overtime.
the premium for that cycle.
Okay.
And
So-
this can really explain that.
So what is an average premium overtime that a firefighter would get over the course of a period of time that would be easy to calculate?
I can tell you, I never get it, and I never take a day of sick leave. But I'll take a personal day here and there, where I break my cycle, maybe once in the entire calendar year, I'll get it paid.
So leaving in premium overtime, which you're saying is required is by law?
Well,
Or-
it's part of their pay,
Okay,
it's just actually part of their pay. If you work throughout that cycle, and it could be anywhere from 1 day to 28 days. Our agreement with the city, we have it at a 24-day cycle,
okay,
but it could be anywhere from 1 to 28. It's basically a federal law.
right, okay.
So since it's a federal law, we don't want to exclude that because they're entitled to that, right?
Is that it's called like the K exemption or something
Mhm.
from the Federal Labor
Yes.
Standards Act? Right, okay. So that's what you're talking about when you're talking about premium
Yes.
overtime. Now, in relation to the total amount of overtime, do you have a guesstimate or a range as to how much of a percentage of the total overtime, the premium overtime would constitute? Because if you're taking out the regular overtime, is that a significant amount of the overtime cost as related to the premium overtime? You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out, what does it mean when you leave in premium overtime?
So it's 5 hours or 10 hours at half pay, right? But Jesus can explain it, and you could probably, if you're trying to look for an average, Jesus could probably pull that up from the off payroll. So it's 10 hours at halftime
Okay,
if you earn it. If you were actually present throughout the 24-day cycle and didn't take any type of leave.
right, but when you're looking at it from the perspective of looking at it for purposes of the changes being made to the retirement fund and how you're calculating benefits, if you're excluding the regular overtime versus the premium overtime, is the regular overtime a much higher number than the premium overtime?
Depends on the individual if they work or don't work, depends where they're at.
So there's still an element of overtime that's going to be calculated, even with the plan changes,
Oh,
based on that premium overtime that would be calculated into the benefits. Is that right?
I would say the premium overtime, like Mr. Chapa says, not that many people get it. You know,
Okay.
I might get it once or twice throughout the year, and like it's half pay. You know, I think when I do receive the 10 hours, it might be about $100 or $80 extra that I might get
It
it
all depends
Okay.
on
the
our.
pay period.
For a pay period.
Compared to if I work overtime, you know, that's time and a half. It's a significant jump, you know. So I think, I mean, percentage, you know, as far as making a difference, I mean, I don't know the exact number, but I would like to say that you're getting over 90%, I guess.
Okay,
making a
you're getting
change
a majority of the,
yeah, you're
making
taking
a
majority
significant change.
over 95 or 96%, you
Okay,
know.
and we can
That's
look, we
I
can
mean,
have
as
Mrs.
a-
look at that.
As a pension board, the thought was, we're not gonna remove anything that you're federally entitled to. If you earn it. I mean,
Okay,
that's at 24 days, actual hours worked.
And again, it goes back just because of the cycle, we're not a regular 40-hour employee.
right,
So
there's
those
a,
are federally
It's
given
a-
to us because of the extra time that we're. working.
right, that's a federally mandated overtime through Federal Labor Standards
And
Act,
it's not
also known as the
regular
exemption
overtime
K.
where we're called in and then.
But what we're
now
talking
we're
about,
figuring out.
right, and what we're talking about is we're just talking about how that affects the calculation of benefits for the pension, which the board sets the policy
You know
for.
how it works, halftime and time and a half, I mean, it's night and day. And then you all know that the figures right now, because overtime's been brought up a lot, that getting rid of this and actually not calculating overtime in the pension is a big jump.
Right, and that's why we're trying to understand, because, you know, when a person, I'm not a firefighter and I'm not subject to the pension, so when I'm looking at it and it looks like, okay, it excludes overtime except premium overtime, what does that really mean? And I'm just trying to understand and make sure I understand that the premium overtime is really a much smaller percentage than the regular overtime that y'all are trying to change, is that right?
It's relatively a fraction of it.
Okay,
And in the overall numbers, it's a fraction of it, because as it is, it's a halftime, even though it's still called overtime. Going back to, at the moment you take one type of leave at 12-hour increments,
you don't get it,
you don't get it.
okay,
So, I mean, it's highly likely that a good amount of our membership don't get it throughout the year at all.
okay.
I
So,
think it helps if we break up our annual leave the way we do to not get it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually a help for the city.
Okay. And then, so with the change, and it would be both Plan A and Plan B that would do this, to exclude what I'm gonna call the regular overtime, just to change it, to differentiate it from the premium overtime. That would change. Currently, they would be receiving $9,649.51. And this is just one example, all the benefits are different.
Mm.
But the change in overtime, excluding the regular overtime, would change it. Would that be the last column? Would that be the difference?
Yeah,
It would
between the
be,
8,000 and 9,000, it's.
So then it would lower-
$1,200.
so it would lower it to $8,449.65 a month, which would be a decrease in $1,199.86, estimated $1,200. Okay,
I didn't see that second example, then.
right, that was gonna go to
difference is
their,
so small because probably that gentleman didn't work overtime.
okay.
And, yeah,
But there are some, for example, there, we have a district chief here who would, under the normal plan, get $11,780,000 a month. And under the changes, it would go down about $2,800 based on the exclusion of overtime. Is
he
that
worked
right?
a lot of overtime. And that's what I guess,
trying to control it.
once we exclude our overtime, our actuary will be able to predict our future a lot easier. Because the overtime, and you can see that gentleman retired in 2021, so in 2020 was staff shortage, COVID, and COVID assignments, took a lot of overtime in the city.
Okay,
And as you see in the first one in 2020, that driver never worked overtime, so there's no difference.
Right.
Neither that deputy. Deputies don't work overtime, so.
okay. So on average, you know, and I know that it depends on the amount of years that you were in service. We have here, it looks like to be a range of anywhere from 21 years of service all the way up to a little bit over 30. That looks to be the range of the retirees that, for the last 3 years. What, is there a general percentage of their base pay and their ad pay, or whatever their salary is there a range of a percentage that they would be able to expect the benefit to be?
Well, basically, based on that years of service, 20 is the minimum that you have to work to be able to retire. That's the state statute, 20 years of service. And then just multiply that times 3. So the gentleman that worked 21 years, multiply that times 3. The gentleman that worked 30 years, multiply that times 3. And that's our max 90.
That's 90%?
It's 93, but it's, on
gonna
the
change.
proposed changes, it's proposed to go down to 90, or I think it is
88,
89, I don't remember.
Okay, so
That
that's, so part
proposal-
of the proposed changes on if Plan A or Plan B are voted on would mean that you would most likely get an average of between about 89 to 90% of what your
If you-
salary is,
If
or,
you work the
If-
max amount of years.
right, if you work 20 or above.
No,
No.
if you work,
Oh,
you're
no.
talking
No,
about
no,
30
no.
years,
Simple,
Okay,
20 times 3, that's what you take.
60% of,
I
Okay.
see.
Simple math.
and you keep on adding 3% for every year that you.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, I see.
And if you max out your 30 years of service because you came in young, then yes, you'll get 90%, or.
So the 90% is 30 years
Yes.
Yes.
times the 3%, that's where, but the plans are gonna change that a little bit.
Well, right
lower
now it's
it.
93, so it's gonna lower from 93 to max, which is 31 years of service, it's gonna lower to 30 years on one, and probably 29 or 28 on the other one.
Okay.
That you'll max out. Some will continue working because they came in at 18, 19 years old, so even when they max out at 30, 31, they can't leave. So they're 50 or 51, whatever the case may be, or they might want to stay for the drop. The years of service here doesn't show if they took a drop, then that benefit also gets reduced because now you're not counting your last 2 years of service.
Okay, and then, and so the retirement eligibility is not just the 20 years, it's a 20 years plus an age requirement?
Yes.
Okay.
50.
50?
Yeah.
As it
So
stands right
once
now.
you reach 20 years and 50 years old, then you have the ability to retire, and you can go up to a max of 31 years right now, but that's gonna change with the enactment of Plan A or B,
Yeah,
right?
So if
Okay.
somebody's third comes in at 30, they stay till 50, they only calculate 20 years.
Right.
So it takes 60.
Okay, and then, I don't know, I don't understand what the drop means, or what raising the drop age means. Can you,
It entices of the individual to stay longer. The individuals that came in anywhere below the age of 22, so everybody from 18 to the age of 21, automatically are gonna max out before they get to the beginning of their drop age. Because, right, both plans are stating to increase it to 53 at the beginning and drop to 55. So they'll continue to pay into the pension fund anywhere from
51 to 53.
51 to 53.
okay,
without
So
an increase.
Once they
without
reach
any
the
more
50
increase,
years
so
old.
it's, like they say, a free donation to it because it's no longer increasing their benefits.
okay, so
That's
their
okay.
benefits remain calculated at a
Yes.
certain level,
So
but they
end up either
continue to,
50 or 51, depending on the plan, and then the 2 years, so we can start the drop at 53. Basically, it doesn't move, we're just contributing to the pension.
okay, and that's with the change?
Yeah, that's what the change. So
That's-
at 53, I would have to stay to 55 in order to receive the 2 years drop,
Okay,
retrograde.
And currently it's age 51 to age 53.
okay, so you're raising that
We're raising
drop
the
bar.
age.
We're raising
Okay,
the bar.
we're raising the bar.
Not only that, those 2 years don't count toward your pension, so like if you started the drop in 2022 and you leave in 2024, what you're taking on your monthly is actually whatever your salary was back at 22.
Right.
So
Okay. And, I had another question. Let me look at it. So what was, can you remind me what the main difference then between Plan A and Plan B? Because they both make changes, they both exclude overtime, they both raise the drop age.
One of the main changes is where we determine the final average. Currently, it's 3 consecutive years out of your last 4. So it's a sliding scale altogether. We limited the cherry picking in 2017, and that's on Plan B to stay the same, and on Plan A, we change it to 5 years, 5-year average.
Are those consecutive years?
Yes, ma'am.
Last 5 years. I think the other big one would be it raises the retirement.
What?
Yes, ma'am, from 50 to 51.
That's Plan A,
Correct.
and Plan B leaves it the same at
You get a
50?
We proposed a changing age because in the state statute, it says 20 years, so we can't change the state statute on the Jalapa.
Right, because that's governed by
Yeah.
that statute.
Yeah, we can override it.
Any other questions on these numbers? Jesus, do you have any questions on these numbers? No.
That's what you want, right? That's what you want. That's the way it looks.
Okay, very good. Okay, we're gonna take this and we're gonna evaluate this, and when we caucus, we're gonna work on this part as well. Then from our side, I have a couple of counter proposals to discuss. Oh, I didn't have the electronic version of it. No, I have it right here.
You got it.
It's a requirement.
I have a counter proposal to Article 4, recognition of negotiating authorities. At the last meeting on September 15th, the union, we presented a counter on this, and the union countered in the afternoon. On 4.3, I think we were both on the same page with regard to the language, the clarifying language, and it doesn't change anything other than it makes that provision more clear. The fire union had proposed the addition of a section 4.4 under Article 4. And that read, the city of Laredo shall comply with the Texas Government Code pursuant to intergovernmental relations. We have proposed to leave that particular section out only because it's not that the city is not required or does not comply with that, but the city is required to comply with all laws, including the Texas Government Code pursuant to the intergovernmental relations. And that's actually found under, I have to look, but there's a section, I think it's chapter 771, and some other chapters that deal with this. And one of the issues, so the question is, it's not so much just because it's in the contract doesn't mean that we don't have to comply with the statutes. We have to, and that's why the city is a legal department, and most times when these contracts or memorandums of understanding or other issues are negotiated or discussed or done between a city and another political subdivision or entity, it's usually vetted through the legal department. One of the concerns was that there may be events that where the fire department has provided services to another entity to help with some sort of emergency response or a response. That is actually, and that it wasn't in writing, and the liability was the concern. The city, if you're performing services directed by your fire chief and your supervisors, and you're called upon by the city to go provide those services, whether it be for the city within your duties or to respond and help or have some sort of mutual cooperation with another entity, that is always going to be covered under the line of duty and with the city policies if you're in the course and scope of your employment. That would mean that you could apply, if you were injured, you could apply for workers' comp, but you would be subject, of course, to those processes and that kind of, that process that you have to go through. We can't interfere with that process. You would be covered by, if there was any sort of lawsuit that arose out of some sort of incident, the city would defend the firefighters, and provide that defense. And if you were hurt, that would be covered even possibly under a line of duty, the line of duty statutes and the pay that you would be entitled to, subject to those processes. There are exceptions within the Texas Government Code on intergovernmental relations when somebody, or when the city is cooperating or providing services such as emergency services. And so that's why, the chapter is not very easy. There's a lot of different exceptions. There's a lot of requirements. And so that law is the law and the city has to follow it. The chief and the city has, what they have committed to doing is looking through all of these kinds of mutual aids that happen and identifying that whether there needs to be a written agreement or if not, and even if there isn't and it's not required by the statute, whether that would be to the benefit of the city and its firefighters in terms of the fire department. For instance, under chapter 771 of the Texas Local Government Code on contract requirements, this was what was being cited by the union the last time, that agreement has to be in writing, must specify certain things. After that, section C of that 771.004 says a written agreement or contract is not required, and it has certain situations. In an emergency, for the defense or safety of the civil population, or in the planning and preparation for those emergencies, in cooperative efforts proposed by the governor for the economic development of the state, or in a situation where an amount involved is less than $50,000. And there's some other exceptions that apply to different situations. The statutes are written so that you have to figure out which one applies to a certain situation. So the city's commitment is always to, of course, follow the law, and that's why we're proposing not included in here, because then if the chapter changes or the legislature says, hey, let's move this to another part of the government code or name it something else, then we would have to do that in the contract, and that's not the intention. I think the intention is to follow the laws. So we have proposed to leave the language as it seems that with the union and the city have agreed on 4.3 and not put in 4.4, because the laws are the laws and we have to comply with them anyway. There's repercussions and there's remedies and there's things that can happen if against the city would be liable for itself if the laws were not followed. And so that's our proposal on Article 4. Any questions?
Our intent on this was just for the protection and to make sure that the department was doing, like you said, having those agreements. So the memorandum of agreement is not a commitment that you're gonna say yes and go out there every time, but it's an avenue that you already explored as far as responsibility, are you gonna charge that other entity anything or not, totally up to the city.
Right.
We're just trying to make sure that they're out there because we know that we don't have them, but we go out there and we provide services outside city limits sometimes. And those agreements to protect us, like you said, if somebody gets injured, we have to go through the TML process and whatever the process is, but we all know they nitpick everything to try to get out of paying any claim. So we're just trying to make sure that that's not one of those technicalities where what we were doing out there is outside the city limits, in municipality. Because in our contract, cities define those municipalities, so when we go out outside of our city limits to assist another entity, whether it's law enforcement or one of our schools, in our local school districts, that's all we were looking for, is to make sure that we're gonna be protected, because if TML says no, there's no remedy for us to come to a city and say, well, TML said no, can you pay for their medical expenses, please? I'm sure the city's gonna say, yeah, we're gonna pay for it.
If it comes down to whether it was something that was within the course and scope of employment, and it's something that you were sent to go do by your supervisor or instructed by the chief or whoever the designee is, you know, that is clear evidence that it's within the course and scope of employment. And this, you know, if that became an issue and you needed the city to say, yes, we sent them out there for this, that would be something that the city, of course, will cooperate in the workers' comp process, or even an appeal if for some reason the third-party administrator or TML gets it wrong. You know, that's what the processes are for, and there's some due process rights embedded in those processes to be able to appeal such things like that.
But TML is a third party
Right.
insurer, right? So just like anything, if I get homeowners insurance and I didn't get wind protection, and there's a big windstorm and it takes off my roof, I'm not covered, I have to pay for that out of pocket.
Yeah, that's a totally different situation.
But you have a contract with TML, does it?
We have a contract with
TML
the-
state that if
The
they send
Texas
us
workers' comp
somewhere with no
statutes,
MOU,
the Texas
we're
workers'
covered.
comp statutes dictate Texas workers' comp processes and procedures, and we have a third-party administrator that we have a contract with, but they have to adhere to the statutes and the contract within the city. The city is, they're a third-party contractor that serves the city.
So do we
So
know
the
for a
city-
fact that if we go out into somewhere else that we don't
I
have an
cannot
MOU?
guarantee, it's gonna be on a
Well, it should
situation,
be a contract that the city already has.
situational basis.
So we could look at the paperwork right now and even state if we're even doing it wrong.
I know last meeting we talked about this and it was brought up, you know, that we do respond to different places that, you know, we don't even know if we're allowed to respond, right? I know Joaquin mentioned that he was gonna look into it with the fire chief as far
Right.
as if has been injured and, you know, and we don't know whether TML, you know, would cover or wouldn't cover. And I think all of us here at this table agree, right, that that the guys should get covered, especially that work. But our biggest, I guess, worry comes down to, does TML gonna follow our same mindset?
Right, so can you give me, so that we can make sure that the city legal department and the chief are gonna look at the right kind of situation and assess that? When would there be a situation where you receive a response or you receive a call and you're gonna respond to something outside of the city, but you're not sure whether there's an agreement or something like that? Because that is something that I think that we should address and make sure that if it's not something that is an emergency and cannot be anticipated, which is what the law allows for something like that, or even emergency preparations, we don't need a written agreement, but that the city management and the department heads and the department is aware of the situation, so we can make sure that if you respond to those calls, that it is within the course and scope of your employment, if you're acting as a firefighter and you're responding to an emergency call. So
But if the contract with TML only stays inside the municipality, then we're kind of helped out.
that's not what
I think
they,
there's
No,
a-
it doesn't
there's a-
work that
there's
way.
a-
the contract is for administration the third-party administration, but what I'm asking for is a
There's a couple
specific,
of-
like
Law
an example.
enforcement response outside the county.
There's stipulations.
We've been told that if law enforcement, DPS, and we run border patrol request assistance, medical assistance for one of their own, then that we're supposed to respond even though it's outside the county. That's one of them. The other one we have an understanding is that UIC has school district or has schools outside the city limits, and that we're supposed to respond.
Okay.
That's what we've been told.
And is that something that's told, like an order from your supervisor, or how does
We
that
just
go down the?
Automatically get dispatched.
Supposedly,
Okay,
that came, we were told it came from our fire chief, but.
okay,
And
It's on
that's been a
Hebron,
long-standing
the
order,
Hebron tornado.
that's been a long-standing order since we stopped servicing the county.
Okay.
The city stopped that agreement with the county as far as providing services.
But as long as it's an official call made by your supervisor, you will be covered.
I mean, because, you know, we
That's
had
exactly
that,
the way it works, so,
yeah, we had
so,
that instance on Mines Road when we stopped at the city limits and we didn't go into county warehouses. And then a couple of weeks later, it got annexed, but we stopped because that standing order was, we don't provide service outside the county. That's it, we have to wait for an order, so even when the county bus road has rolled over several times within our county, outside our city limits, there's a conversation that has to happen, I guess, the chief or designee with whether it's city administration or county. We don't know the process, but we know there's a process. We know there's a delay, but we know there's a process and an MOU there in place. It's just these other entities that we've been told that we're gonna go help. We don't think there's a MOU in place.
okay. And when you're told to go help, is that through dispatch, or is that through your captain or your
Dispatch will
district
not, there'll
chief?
be a district chief or above will make that decision.
Okay. Okay, so that's well within the course and scope of employment, if it's being, you know, if it's coming from a supervisory officer to do that. And, but we will be looking from the city side to address and make sure that all those holes are filled and that there is no lapse in the concerns on the liability for the firefighters.
And then the real
That's in the best
grant,
interest of both the firefighters and the city. We don't want to create a situation.
what about international water? We've gone to the river.
Still in the river.
I'm not aware of what interlocal or mutual aid agreements or MOUs are in place with regard to that. So we would have to look at that and address that issue.
we just had a truck that rolled into a water embankment off the river, and the city was covered by TMA and was replaced. So they look at it on a case-by-case basis. The city of Laredo is self-insured. We pay the first $300,000, and every case is looked at on an individual basis. But
That's coming after fall, right? Is that
yes, that was after.
And it's the first 300,000 per case.
On an individual case, and it applies also for workers' comp. So every case is looked at on a case-by-case basis, and as long as, Ms. Roxy has said, it forces for full employment.
Okay. We're going to talk about this.
The next article I have is uniforms. In this article, this was part of the, one of the economic articles that you had proposed, in that the fire union had proposed to move, Yeah, where you had proposed on 18.1 to up the allocation of $600 per year for a member to buy all fire department, or to purchase up to $600 worth of required uniforms. You had changed that to 750, which was an increase in $150. You had also proposed changing the maintenance, this is known as the uniform maintenance, right?
Mhm.
That's currently $500. You had proposed to change that up to $700, an increase of $200. Some of the issues with regard to the price of the required uniforms, the price was really a vendor issue that is being addressed at the moment. I think that the vendor, as I have discussed with the city, the vendor contract is at its end, and they're addressing that issue to provide a vendor that's going to provide properly priced items and not overprice the items, as it seems that the vendor we've had some vendor issues. So that's being addressed on the administrative side. The other item is that we have already, in our economic proposal, the proposals that we placed on the table, we have placed a total of almost $11 million in new monies over the course of the contract to include increases. And we didn't, nickel and dime these increases at all to the base pay. We're proposing a lump sum of a 5-year contract of the $2,200 the first year, but for the years, for year 2 of the contract, we're proposing a 1.5% increase. Year 3, a 1.5% increase. Year 4, a 1.75% increase, and in year 5, a 2% increase. So that's for a total of, not even including the lump sum payment the first year, but that is a 6.75 increase to the base pay over the 5-year contract. And in addition to that, we're also putting the conditional additional contribution to the pension for a total of 1.4 million. So we propose to leave those uniform allocations the same. On 18.3, there had been an issue raised. Currently, the fire chief has the ability to require a dress Class A uniform for certain special occasions, and that's already a part of the contract. And that failure of the employee to have the dress uniform or the work uniform in good condition is grounds for disciplinary action. It seems that there may have been this just clarifies that the fire chief has the ability. That's what the May wording is. So we just wanted to clarify that and discuss that. In 18.4, the union had proposed to add to the official Class C uniform tennis shoes. And so this is what we're proposing, and I'm going to tell you why. On 18.5, it allows the fire chief shall have the discretion to determine when to wear a polo shirt and, as allowed by law and OSHA standards, tennis shoes as allowed Class C uniform items. We wanted to be able to include the tennis shoes, but the problem is that official Class C uniforms are allowed to be worn during emergency responses. And the issue with tennis shoes is that OSHA standards require, I don't know if it's a steel toe or composite toe boot, or I don't know if it's steel toe but there's a required kind of shoe that you have to wear for emergency responses. The fire chief has allowed tennis shoes for downtime at the stations as a Class C uniform, just as not while you're responding to emergency responses. So that's why we propose to put it in 18.5, and he can issue, if this is something that's agreeable, that he can issue that tennis shoes are allowed during the downtime at the stations as a Class C uniform, just not during emergency responses. OSHA standards will apply, something like that. So, so that's the only reason that we're not including it in 18.4 because of the OSHA standards and requirements that the fire department must follow. Are there any questions on Article 18?
And I think there's I guess a little bit of history on 18.3. I know there is a current policy out that the fire chief has tried to enforce as far as, their Class A uniform. I don't think we've ever argued that, we shouldn't have to wear them, but I know it specifically states that provided that the city does purchase the uniforms for us, as one of the biggest things. I think current policy is trying for the firefighters to purchase them. The uniform alone on a Class A is over $600-700,
Yeah, the cost for
The
the
cost
high,
for-
for that formal coat and pants and hat. And plus,
Dress shoes.
you have to have pins, stripes, it's real expensive. And uniforms,
Your initial
your
uniform is
issue uniform.
provided by
and
the
this
city.
provides a maintenance of that uniform. Asking us to get a different uniform, which is Class A, which is only for very limited engagements. It's putting a huge burden on the firefighter because I can tell you when you come in, you may not have a jacket for a year because those are very expensive also. So they're able to buy pants and shirts, maybe one pair of boots, and that's it. They're out of money. They don't even have money for a jacket. And then the following year to ask them, or any year to ask them, put out $600-700 for pant, coat, hat, all these pins and stripes. You may or may not wear it once a year. It's kind of like, you put too much burden on the firefighter.
So, but this was
plus
already
the
part of the contract, right?
It was there, but.
It's been there, it's in the
Yeah,
current
but
contract.
when you ask us to change it, now you're saying you can order us to do it, and that's something
Well-
strictly out of pocket.
I think it says the original contract says the fire chief may require. I think,
And the
isn't
reason-
that the same
But-
thing?
but
He has
May-
the ability
No,
to?
no. May is not,
So that's why we need to have
as
this
an attorney,
discussion.
tell me, may and shall are the same thing?
No, shall is that
Okay.
he will require, but here may means that it's at his discretion.
Right.
If the chief chooses to require the Class A, he has the ability to require it.
So.
If
I
he,
guess it-
so
It may.
it
and-
depends on the chief.
It may, I guess, in your terms, it may and has the ability to, means the same, why
Why
wouldn't
the
we just
change?
leave?
Because of this exact, because we have to have this conversation with regard to what does that mean for the chief? And I think this is the time to do it.
But the conversation has been had with this current chief and the prior chief, and that's where the understanding has been that the city provides the initial uniform, and we are deemed to upkeep it, because as your promotion up, the jacket changes, all the pins change. So the burden on the firefighter is gonna change over the time, and that's where we shield that burden. But-
So, and I need to know the history of this so that we have the info. Where is it that if a Class A uniform is required, that the city will pay for it?
It's in the sentence after that.
Okay,
Our stance is, that the chief may require it as long as the city does purchase the uniform. So you read,
oh,
It says there, visits to the department by dignitaries and or formal inspection.
provided that these uniforms are
city.
issued by the city.
so that we don't, our stance is, we're not arguing
Okay.
that we
Okay,
shouldn't have
and
to wear
that's why
them.
I'm having this discussion, right?
So I think if we're fine with may require, as long as the city does provide the uniform, we have no problem wearing the uniform and maintaining the
I
uniform.
mean, we can maintain it, but as specified by the language in that article, it's like, we'll maintain it, but give us a Class A uniform.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, so we do the 600, assuming it's 600, right? So we give it to you this year. How do we make sure that, the following year, maybe you get promoted, and all we would have to give you is the stripes or whatever?
What do you mean?
What are you talking about, the 600? The 600
Well,
for a year?
Like,
hypothetically,
if you do a
hypothetically
one-time
speaking-
purchase is
Right.
what you're proposing, a one-time purchase,
Right.
then we would maintain it
ourselves?
Our guys, I think right now, the city, like when we rank up, the chief gives us one badge. It's up to us whether we're gonna buy that extra badge or whatever. Now it
Comes out of
becomes
our
part of that
uniform
maintenance.
allowance.
We damage that badge, we buy it. It's not like PD where they kind of just trade and issue stuff like us. I can give you an example. One of the guys on the truck, his flashlight was stolen at a call. We were in a motor vehicle accident, a lot of people were there. He put his flashlight down to help package a patient, put him on a stretcher, looked down, flashlight's gone. He comes chatting and say, hey, my flashlight got stolen, should I make a police report? Yes, I did. Okay, we'll buy one next year.
No, but
So-
just assuming,
Yeah.
pretending that $600, how often do we have to give the $600 to maintain
It
the
would be
Class
that,
A?
it would be
It's a
that one
one-time?
time.
Yeah,
It's a
one
one
time.
time.
we would have to, it'd be our duty to maintain it.
Okay, that's all I want.
And I just,
Just
I
like
want you to
currently right
know,
now.
yeah, that we're not proposing to change what 18.3 says, and we just wanted to discuss that. I think there may have been an issue on the May, but that, what that means to the city is that the chief has the ability to require that. And we're not proposing to change anything in that sentence that says, provided that these uniforms are issued by the city. So, if that the intent was not to change that or to require, to add an additional expense to the firefighter, if that's what's already given in the current contract, okay? But it was just a discussion about if the chief has the ability to require them, and we just want to make sure that this has already been in the contract, that the chief still can utilize this particular ability.
I guess with the new change, I guess, and now knowing that the city does have to purchase it, if it's a requirement, what would, I guess, change with has the ability to compare to the main?
Nothing. I think it was just, we needed a discussion to understand what may means. And from the city side, it means that he has the ability to do it. So it's not a shall, it's not, it's a may, and it's at his discretion. So you may have a chief that likes the Class A uniforms and requires them at more occasions than another chief. And then you may have another chief that says, no, we're not gonna do Class A, and it just gives the discretion to
Like I
that chief.
said, this issue has been brought up, like I say, by the current chief, by the previous fire chief. And it was always on the understanding that he does have the ability to require it,
Okay,
with the understanding that the initial one was supposed to be provided by the city. So we're like, you want for us to wear it, there's no problem. Where's our uniform? And that's always been the point where, well, that's why they don't have it, because they don't want to get it. It's not the fact that we don't want to get it.
Because you may not use it all the time.
We've
Yeah.
never,
So
we've
you'd rather
never,
buy the
The,
regular
the
clothes.
$600 that we get allotted could go to boots and stuff that we're actually gonna use on duty.
right.
I mean, we can look up the pricing right now on it, and the $600, if I was giving it today,
Yeah,
would not buy me a complete Class A
Yeah.
uniform.
It's a Class A is a very nice suit, right? It's the one with the stripes and it's
The
the,
hat.
Depending on
It's the formal one.
Depending on the
Right.
vendor, yes.
it's the formal.
The ones you use for maybe funerals or special events. like I
Even
said.
then, some of our members have purchased it on their own because, hey, I have enough uniforms. No, let me start buying my Class A little by
Yeah,
little.
that's their
And
own
they've actually
choice.
donated to the firefighters that have passed away.
So donate
And-
the coats or.
That was never replaced, that was never given, that was never, so that's, anywhere from $150 to up to $300, I believe, on the coat that he's just giving away out of his own allotment. So, like I say, nothing has been provided concerning the Class A.
Okay.
So we never had an issue with the wording of it, but the changing of the wording could always change the understanding of what was already in play.
So, on 18.5, I'm sorry, Adam. When we added the athletic shoes, that was more so that guys could have something to wear to work out there at the station. There is already policy in place where if you go out to a call, whether it's an EMS call, if you're on the engine, or you have to wear your PPE at all times, right? You have a tech gen, we have the regular bunker gear. If you don't have your tech gen, you wear your regular bunker gear. So we're already at that point where by our own policies coming from the fire chief, we don't wear tennis shoes to calls,
Okay,
right? So, I mean, it's kind of to me, it's kind of mundane to put there, what as allowed by OSHA standards tennis shoes. For us, it was more to have it as part of our uniform allowance so that we could be able to purchase it.
I see,
You know,
okay.
that's why we had put it under the Class C.
Not only that, that also changes 18.4 because you're stating the Class C is only allowed by OSHA, blue surge cap, baseball style shirt.
No.
Pants, all, it changes,
No,
it's gonna change the intent of that.
No, it's not actually, what I'm looking at is from a liability standpoint and from the safety of the firefighters.
Yeah,
And
if
so
you're under the
OSHA
understanding
does,
that.
yeah,
we can
OSHA
use-
doesn't require a blue surge cap, but
Question.
OSHA does require that you wear certain shoes for emergency responses. So
of course.
that's why it's like that, because, and we understand that the athletic shoes should be, that's why they're as allowed as Class C, but only at the station during downtime or so you can do your,
And I
you
think
know,
that's already in there in
exercise.
the policy.
But then, you want us to buy the tennis shoes so that
No.
you can exercise?
No,
No, they want it to be allowed under,
Okay,
so
so
that
then
they
maybe we
can
can do
buy,
another one,
so they can buy it under their allotment.
like I'm saying,
Right.
you want the city to buy them? Is the
Well-
question, the answer is yes.
Well, ma'am,
Well-
in our uniform allotment, there's also buy shorts, buy socks.
But those are specifically Laredo Fire, and I'm thinking you're not gonna go out with them.
Well, not the
Tennis shoes, you can
socks
go out
and-
anywhere with them, I mean.
You wanna put the Laredo Fire on, go for it.
If you make them look nice.
We're getting away from what the intent, I guess,
I
and
see.
purpose, you know,
Yeah.
I guess it was more just to be, if they can give us something and, you know, and the goals, and we would be able, I mean, we have before, they have, put there as part of the shoes, and some guys have taken advantage of that.
And we are required by policy also to maintain our physical fitness an hour and a half per shift. So I don't wanna be doing stuff like that in boots.
If I may, I mean, technically speaking, $200 Air Force Ones are tennis shoes, right?
Yeah, but,
And you don't work out in those. I'm just saying, would that cover?
no.
Okay, no, just.
No, because
You're right,
yeah,
we're not talking
There's
about,
fashion tennis shoes, and
no,
there's
no,
like
no.
working out ones.
And-
No,
I only have the fashion ones.
And then that's why we put
We're gonna-
athletic shoes, because
Yeah.
So we're gonna select the tennis shoe for you all to buy?
no,
that's
it was
that's the
golf
way it's
basically
been,
does.
that's the way it's been
Yes,
purposed.
that's why it's been for about 10 years, we've been able to buy a tennis shoe. It's a $69 tennis shoe, it's not.
It's
Most
nothing,
of the time,
Don't
they're
let-
not Jordans.
Don't let
Yeah.
Joaquin pick them
Yeah,
then.
no, we know what kind of shoes you wear, sir, we're not gonna wear
Okay,
those.
perfect.
There's nothing we can resell or actually wanna be seen out there with.
And actually,
So we don't wear those to the calls, just to be clear, we don't wear tennis shoes to the calls at all. We wear boots, either the uniform boots that we have on, or we wear tech gym boots, or we wear the bunker boots. Those are the only things we wear.
I think that like the tennis shoe part, or the athletic shoe part, that we can, I think we're on the same page. It's just a matter of kind of carving out the language on that.
yeah, because.
But I get it, and you see, from my perspective, I just want to make sure that everyone's protected legally and.
Yes,
and
and the way,
That can be handled through policy and it's already in place. I mean, if somebody wears a shoe mostly at a call, most times than not, it's just in the rush of getting out of the station that they forget to change.
So,
And they're
well,
not doing it
But we-
purposely.
that could be done by policy, but what I don't want to encounter is on 18.4, somebody does go out, a new firefighter, like, you know, years from now, and this is still in here, and it says that the athletic shoes are an official Class C uniform, and someone goes out and loses their foot, you know?
No,
And so and then, you know, or they're not, or a supervisor says, hey, you're running out of here to emergency response, so you're wearing your athletic shoes, no, you need to put on your boots, and they're gonna file a grievance saying, well, no, it says that my athletic shoes are an official Class C uniform. You know, those are the kinds of things that we're trying to avoid. I don't think, we don't wanna create those problems.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I have the uniform policy here, right, and it does say all blue shorts, tennis shoes, department approved t-shirts may be worn at the station after business hours, right? While responding to emergencies, whereas PPE, personal protective equipment, or bunker gear is to be utilized, by personnel may wear issued t-shirts under the gear and thereafter when dress down order is issued by the scene supervisor.
Okay,
So you know, we have policy against wearing any kind of tennis shoes at calls.
okay,
You know, the only time I think it would merit for us to wear a tennis shoe would be if it was like a swift water rescue, something like that, where our guys would have to go out there, that you can't wear your bunker gear
Something
or your
lighter.
tech gen.
right, there's
into
different
it.
kinds of.
You have to wear
equipment
something
you have
light,
to
something to
wear.
be able to, so you can maneuver in water, in murky water, of course, but other than that, those are special, you know, circumstances that, you know, and as far as any regular emergency, There's no tennis shoes out there
Okay,
whatsoever.
so I think we just have to kind of toy or craft some language that would, that is clear on the contract and people would understand and know that this does not intend to create those kinds of issues.
Or we can
So-
just,
and
we can just take that, leave it as it was 18.5, and then whenever we have the vendor, just include a tennis shoe there.
issue.
That we, because we've already been doing it, so.
The issue came up because this year before we were able to purchase, they changed that uniform list. And it changed what we have, because even though we wear navy blue, not every maker has the same navy blue. So our pants and shirts don't match up. They're always changing. We go from 511, now you use this other brand, now you use this other brand. And they keep changing the brand, so that navy blue keeps changing. And so they narrowed down that list, making it, if you liked a particular brand the way it fit, and they changed it to, oh, just wear this other one now, and that ability to have that other one as well. And then they took off the shoes for some reason off that list. And that's where I think just became an issue this year, but we've had those shoes on for forever. And just like we have the ability to buy firefighter boots, even though they're issued to us, they're on that list, and they're $400 boots, but they're a lot more comfortable, easier to take off and on. So the guys go ahead and do that. And that's where the whole uniform thing comes into play, where don't force us to buy something we don't already have, because it's gonna blow the budget.
And I think the practice with the uniforms that we've been following throughout, the past couple of years, I guess since I came in, it has worked. I mean, we're just suggesting that we maintain that same policy as far as being able to order shoes, and as far as when it comes to the Class A uniform, follow past practice, and do the same, whether the chief has the ability to tell us to wear Class A, but as long as the city purchases, so to keep with past practices, we do suggest that we maintain the same wording.
Okay. Okay, any other questions on that one? Nope. I have Article 31, disciplinary action. Okay, I was just looking at my notes, I apologize. So, we had proposed, no changes to Article 31. on September 15, 3 p.m. And the union, or excuse me, on September 15, 10 a.m. and the union counter proposed with Article 31 and adding a 31.3, employee has the option to exercise his or her wine garden or guarantee rights. We're proposing that we don't, to leave it the same, that we don't, that is actually not required. Wine garden and garrity are Supreme Court cases that are case law, that are rights given to the firefighters, no matter whether if it's in the contract or not. My concern with, for both sides and including it in there, makes it seem like that right is an option when it's not, it's a Supreme Court case that establishes that right. So, and there's a possibility that there could be a new case interpreting wine garden or garrity. Wine garden is the employee's right to request a union representative, and garrity right is the right to, if they're required to cooperate in investigation, not to use that information in any other proceeding, only in that one administrative proceeding. It can't be used like in a criminal investigation, for instance, or any other investigation, and it protects the employee. And it you know, and it helps the city investigate administrative items. So there could be an instance where wine garden or garrity are either discussed or overruled or made, you know, interpreted some different way and results in a different case name. And so we don't want anything to impair those Supreme Court case law rights that are already established. The city has to follow them. The firefighter and the employee has those rights. And I don't want anything to give the impression that those are not their rights in the contract. So that's the only reason that we're proposing it's not necessary to include it in the contract. They're established case law by the Supreme Court. They're recognized by the city. There's never been an issue with the city denying any kind of wine garden or garrity rights that I'm aware of. And if there's any issues, let us know, and so that we can resolve them immediately. And so we're proposing that we leave Article 31 the same. We can have this discussion at the table that yes, wine garden and garrity rights are rights that the employee has, and the city recognizes them and will honor those rights, and that the city has in all its practices and procedures honored those rights. That's our proposal. Do you have any questions on that? Okay. There's a couple, that's what, before, we're gonna need to caucus, because those are the articles that I have, the counter proposals that we're doing right now, but we do have some items for discussion before we do go into caucus, or if, I don't know if you have counter proposals. The city, in preparing its continuing to prepare its counter proposals, specifically the economic items. There's, as I've said before, we look at the economic items as a whole, because we have to make sure that we create the most value for not only the city, but the firefighters in the money that we're putting on the table. And we've already placed $11 million on the table, new money on the table for a proposed 5-year contract. So in that matter, what the city is looking for is, we're anticipating a counter proposal on Article 16, the ad pays, the percentage ad pays more specifically. We had a discussion about that at the last meeting, and the union was going to go back and reevaluate that article. And even if what we're looking for is a counter proposal, or at least some discussion on that article so that we can address that issue. We're also looking to discuss and look for counter proposal on Article 29 for the health insurance fund. What is the article called?
The dependent fund.
Yeah, but with regard to the dependent fund, but it's the health insurance article, Article 29. And then separately, so we're looking for those two articles and with regard to the economic issues. On a separate note, I know that we have been discussing an outside employment policy that the chief had placed out, but that had been kind of pulled back and was being revised and vetted by legal and in discussions with the union on that. My understanding, and I don't have the specifics, but my understanding is that there is a current grievance that has been filed on that. That, and it's pending, and it is, and that the response deadlines are running. And I think that it's at the chief's level, the fire chief's level. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
It's at the chief's level and the deadline is sometime next week. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what the city is asking is that since we're here and we have this open table for negotiations, and I do understand that that discussions between the city management and the union have been happening with regard to the revision of such policy and possibly almost maybe coming to an agreement on what that policy is going to wind up being. The city is proposing that in light of the ability to discuss this at the table and address this through the collective bargaining agreement, we're here at the table, so it would toll or stop the running of the response, and if so, if we cannot remedy it or resolve it here at the table, then once these negotiations end or we wind up in a contract, but that issue is not resolved, and I always try to resolve any kind of grievances that are pending with this collective bargaining agreement, that then once we determine that the deadlines will continue to run, it'll just pick up where it left off. It doesn't start over or anything like that, but we're asking for an abatement right now so we can have that discussion, possibly resolve this without having to use two separate processes, utilize what we have here, try and address it within these negotiations, and then that way we can try to efficiently and collaboratively resolve it. I know that there's been discussions that are happening. So that's a request of the city that we abate that, at least, and just toll it, just stop it right now, and then we'll pick it up at a later time. And if we need a written agreement, I can prepare that. Just something for you to discuss in your caucus with your team.
Ma'am, but there's, I guess, 3 grievances were filed.
Okay, I only knew about, I didn't know that there were 3 of them. Okay,
It's
So
three, it's
they're
3
addressing 3 different things. One is a policy,
okay.
and I think that might be a back and forth, but the.
And that's the one I'm
memorandum-
talking about. I
But the
don't,
memo has not been touched, and there's 2 grievances on the memo.
and the memo is the enforcement of the policy, is that what it is?
It's just redefining or spelling out what we can do during exchange. It says, for education enrichment,
Okay.
community service,
Okay,
so
so what,
that's a big concern.
absolutely, yeah, and we were just
And I filed
discussing,
that one, so
we were
I'm
just-
telling you, I'm not gonna abate.
you're not gonna, because we were just discussing exchanges last meeting, right? We had an article where we were discussing exchanges and what was allowed, et cetera, and what the contract says. So my ask for any pending grievances, and please bring them all up to, so I know about the outside employment policy grievance. Now you're telling me about the memo, is it the outside employment policy?
It's a memo
You're,
that was issued,
oh, the one that you gave me the last time?
yes.
Okay,
So there, it redefines exchanges and paybacks. And then it also defines what we can do, and it's basically limiting it to what I can do on my day off. As far
Okay.
as, if I make an exchange or I get a payback, our chief's telling, or an exchange really, he's telling me I can only do it for educational enrichment, community service,
so,
or a personal matter, but
so let me, let me give you the reasons why we're asking for an abatement, and how an abatement of these grievances will not hinder the process. It won't stop your grievance. It won't affect your due process with regard to going through these grievances. But what it does do is it allows us to have the discussion about what the contract does and does not allow, or what the contract provisions require. And if, for instance, exchanges, if the memo is in contradiction to the current contract and what we're negotiating, we can address that through this negotiation without having to go through that process, and to be able to more quickly resolve that issue. So that is our ask, that, and that has always been a practice that I have employed in municipalities and counties across the state, that when contract negotiations are going on and there's grievances with regard to contract provisions, this is actually the perfect place to address those. And if we need to fix something within the contract or clarify something, as that's what this is for, clarify something in the contract, that we do it now, and we utilize this this procedure without affecting or hindering the grievance process and the due process. So that's what we're asking. We're asking to have these discussions at the table and resolve them through this collective bargaining without any punishment or detriment or any kind of consequence to the grievant. Or, you know, if you filed a grievance, it won't affect your position or your ability to grieve it. Everybody, each party would retain their claims, defenses, but nothing changes. It just pauses it for a moment so that we can discuss it and see if it's something that can be resolved through the contract negotiation, and if not, it just moves forward. So
I
that's
guess
what we're asking.
when it comes to the union's point of view, you know, we discussed this policy with the fire chief, you know, maybe 3 weeks ago or so, and we did mention the stuff that we were not, I guess, in agreement with, and he did say he was gonna, you know, pump out a new policy that week. You know, on our side, we haven't seen anything, you know, they haven't moved on it, you know, so we just can't keep on.
I'm sorry, just if I may, we have moved on it. There have been many revisions to this policy. It is a far cry. It is way different from the first policy, and we've already been in discussions.
Well,
And I understand it, and the question that I asked is to make sure that at least the president and vice president were included in those, and the answer was yes.
Yeah.
I was told, and David was also included.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so the answer is, there have been
Yes,
exchanges.
I guess not saying that there hasn't been any movement on the city side, but as far as them saying that they would put out a policy in place.
Right.
Well, because
And-
they're still
Yeah.
reviewing it, I'm hearing back.
So
and
I
forth.
But
I
that's
think
only the
that-
policy, the SOP part of it. Our two other grievances are based on a memorandum that he put out.
I guess let's take one at a time, so
Yeah.
that we won't confuse
Sure,
what the
sure.
processes were.
Sure, so the conversation back and forth is only based on the SOP, but nothing has been done to retract the memorandum that redefines exchanges.
Okay.
That's our biggest concern.
And my understanding is, I'm not involved in the specific grievances or the discussions that have been having, but when I've been briefed about it, my understanding is that the grievances that are pending are being taken into consideration. There has been no enforcement of any policy or any memorandum.
There
So-
has been enforcement because we already had to turn in our request for
I-
approval.
I don't believe that those were mandated by the chief. I thought it was just people
No, he
following.
mandated, district chiefs went around every station asking for them. Telling Victor,
Okay.
I know you work somewhere, I need your form right now. I need to take it to the chief. So it was mandated, we had to do it before September 1st. This policy came out.
Okay. Well, and that's why we're having these
Yeah, it came out-
discussions, so
it
we
came
can
out on
address
August
these
16th.
issues.
It came out on August 16th, we filed those grievances and those mandates, like I said, there was a mandate of turning your form by September 1st.
Okay.
And it
Well,
was enforced, on every shift, district chiefs went around stations picking those up.
Okay.
Some guys received approvals, some of us didn't.
And Mr. Joppa, and again, we're not saying with this abatement that your claim or your grievance goes away. All All we're asking is that it be put on hold or on pause while these negotiations are happening. And if we get nowhere, the negotiations are over, you're still gonna have every right to file your grievance. That's the only
Or to
thing.
continue with
To
it.
continue it, because having a grievance in the midst of all these negotiations might send everything back, and all this hard work would be for nothing. So that's all we're asking. It's just a pause. It's not you waiving your right to a grievance.
And I think the grievance process, it gives ample time, you know, it's at the chief's desk right now, you know, he has certain time limits, but after that, you know, it gets to the city manager's desk, and I think it's 12 business days, you know, so you're talking about, you know, weeks, you know, 3-4 weeks still, as far as the grievance process, you know, the way it goes forward, you know, so I think without having to go through an abatement, we have ample time here at the table. We're serious about, you know, working through some of these issues.
There, I don't foresee us going longer than that time allotted for the grievance. And if we can fix something here, we can always pull them back. And then
And what, you don't foresee us going longer than the,
Well, unless you all want to keep negotiating till December, I mean, we're making progress.
right,
moving forward.
right, okay.
There's no reason why we need to pull them back, when at the end of the day, it's still going to go through its process, and we're gonna go probably deep until October by the time that even reaches where we need to get it to, so it can be heard. So there's still process. It's at the fire chief's desk, it's gonna go to the city manager's desk. There's certain days in between that they're gonna be met, but I mean, are we gonna be here still negotiating then?
I hope to have a contract before then, so.
No, but that's what
But,
they're saying.
and what, that's what I'm saying, that if we can, if there's an issue and it's directly related to the contract, and there's some sort of misunderstanding, that we need to clear up that misunderstanding here, understand on both sides what the contract intends to say or intends, and that we resolve it here at the table before even having to go, you know, go to the city manager and then go and get an arbitrator and start paying them for, you know, an arbitrator list and administration of an arbitrator and things like that, when we have the perfect tool right here to address the very contract that we're negotiating. So that's what we're asking.
We're trying to address it, so.
The articles have come up, that we've talked about is in direct correlation with that, with the grievances and both the memo and the SOP that came out. The thing about the abatement till after the contract is signed, if we get to address it or not, if wording changes, it's gonna change because of clarification, it's gonna change the meaning of the article, and it's gonna throw out the past practice. So whatever was negotiated in prior contracts under that article will no longer cease to exist, which will be able to enforce a different SOP now. So the thing is that that's why we were on a time frame of why we filed it and when we filed it.
This is the other issue, is that this contract expires September 30th, right? So, and there's an evergreen clause, and it keeps going on. If for some reason that we don't have a deal by September 30th, but once what we're trying to do is negotiate a new contract. So when you file a grievance on a contract, on an old contract, that grievance becomes moot for the new contract, right? And that's why when I sign a new contract and I get a contract approved, you don't want to start off the bat with a grievance already. We want to make sure that we address that situation before we start. We want to start with a fresh new contract without grievances, because we want there to be an understanding as to what this contract is when we start it, you know? And that just sets off on the wrong foot, because if we can't resolve that with the new contract, then, you know, where are we at with the new contract? You know, I think because the grievances are issues that you are having, or that you are claiming are a violation of the contract. We need to fix those. That's what we're here for.
Historically, as a recommendation, or maybe we all are saying the same thing, or maybe not. Historically, when we get to the article, and maybe we can push those articles forward, come to an agreement, and at the same time, sign off on the grievances at that point. Whatever the agreement is what normally would go on the new article. So we sign off on them, and the grievances will pretty much be resolved at that point. That's what we want to be able to do, not necessarily that the contract will be over, you know, we won't resolve them until the contract is over. So as soon as we sign off on the article of, that we're looking at, is the minute that we sign off on the grievance.
I think last meeting, we signed off on the exchange payback policy, right? And I think, it's something that we could all agree that maybe that policy could be pulled back because, and that policy, it does say, what you can do with the exchanges and paybacks, and the extent that they can be paid back. So I think,
So, yeah, we need to look at, because I think that that was, which one was that one, Article 10?
10.
Yeah, so we had tentatively agreed to Article 10, right? Tentatively agreed, of course, meaning that it's tentative upon the agreement of the entire contract. But, yes, I think that if we tentatively agreed to that article, and there's still a grievance, we need to just, on that article, then we need to resolve what that grievance is, because there's, both sides are still not understanding, or on the same, different pages about
Well,
what
the
that
thing is, if we
means.
totally agreed to that,
Right,
and the policy's still not out, that's going in coincidence with that.
So, right.
The liability is not on our side, it's on the city side, it's on administration side. To either have changed the policy or gotten rid of the policy, the way it was written, or the revision that would be in violation to that.
Right, and that's,
So I'm
that's
saying,
the two,
we've already agreed to it. It's the outside party that's actually still in confrontation, because the work has been done, it's been revised, we've let them know, it's still not out to see exactly if it is in violation or not. If we can't see it and we already tentatively agreed to something like that, so now administration's
Right.
liable to under this. What you're asking is for us to stop our grievance.
to pause, not stop it, to pause it.
Yeah,
And
what
I
I'm
think
saying,
To
like,
give us some time to discuss this at the table. If we need to
but
go
we have
over,
discussed it at the
It's
table.
been discussed and it's
we've
been.
discussed this article with regard to the changes that were made to there. We have not discussed the actual grievance.
I did bring it up when we were talking about.
You
that.
brought it up, but we haven't discussed the grievance, and if we're looking for the policy, we need to discuss the policy here. Then let's pause let's pause the process and bring up, either maybe have a subcommittee on it or something. But it's something that we need to discuss, because what we're doing here is we're spinning wheels here and discuss it here where the bargaining team is here, and that we have the authority of the city council, and we have the fire chief right here on our, that is my client, and that we can discuss it and resolve it here.
And I think
You
there
know?
has been a proposal on our side, the union side, on one of the articles to implement, wording on it, to discuss, I guess, to fix some of the issues,
Okay,
So,
so I think what we need to do is we need
On
to,
your side to come back with
I
with a
think what
wording
we,
on it.
I think what we need to do is identify the three grievances, and identify the issues and the articles affected on those. We'll outline those, figure out what we need to talk to about the table, but the request from the city, and we're gonna do it no matter what, but the request from the city is that we abate the grievances, meaning that we just pause them with no consequence to the grievance or the process. And we try to resolve it, and when we sign off on the contract or the article, that it resolves it. I think that's, because if there's some clarifications or something that we need to address in the article, it needs to be done now, in fact, and rather than, I don't want to sign a contract and then we get a grievance the first day.
I guess we'll talk about it, I guess, amongst
Yeah,
ourselves,
just
and-
talk about it in caucus. And there's another distinction that I want to make, is that the city still maintains its management right to have policies, right? To manage the department and assignment, right of assignment, and all this other, the management rights that are not given away in this contract. And so the city has the ability to create a policy, but you're right. This policy cannot be in violation of what the obligations are within the contract. And that's what we want to sit down and talk about. Make sure that the policy that is at issue here is in line with the obligations are with the contract. And
If we're all on
that's the
same
goal of
page on
it,
that.
so.
As far as the policy, we follow policies that they release, and everything coincides with the contract, as long as it doesn't, and we're on the same page.
Okay.
We want for this to be followed.
Right.
When you start deviating and creating policy in a tyrannical, I guess the word is, tyranny. You start trying to dictate what firefighters can do on their off time, that's where we step in.
And this
That's-
is specifically with regard to
It'd be
the secondary
on the-
jobs?
on the no, on the exchanges.
Oh, on the
and
exchanges,
payback,
okay.
Stuff like that.
Changing how many we can do, basically, because the contract specifically says we can do 5 exchanges. The chief redefined that, says 5 exchanges, and
And
paybacks. So now we're limiting me, so if I do 5 exchanges every month, right, that I'm entitled to, when am I gonna pay this other person back? Do I keep asking for 5?
Right, and that's already been,
And-
that's part of the agreement, right, of
The
the,
agreement says to pay him back, but the memo he put out says, in a month, I'm gonna do 5, whether it's 3 paybacks and 2 exchanges. The contract says I can do 5 exchanges per month.
oh, so
So there-
that,
there's a
this is,
contradiction.
this
The
is
memo-
where, this
the
is,
memo- the
this
memo
is
contradicts.
where the conversation, and I remember you asked me that question, and now I understand why you asked me that question. You said, are exchanges and paybacks 2 different things? That's what that was based on?
Yes.
Okay, so
Well,
now I have the
because-
context of that, and I need to discuss it with my team, and we need to caucus, and then maybe we can resolve it in that way, okay? So,
The memo has been revised to address those exact concerns, Mr. Chapa.
But we haven't seen.
We haven't seen it.
I understand, but just to let you know.
right, and this is the thing, you know, these things aren't taken lightly, and they're being worked on. And rather than push something out quickly, and, you know, we're looking at making, what they're doing is,
The whole month.
Yeah, it's August 16th.
It was August 16th that was put out, we met the next day or 2. So we'll come back, we haven't come back, we filed those grievances. And then, I'm aware of the policy it's been working on, it looks acceptable to everyone, but the memo hasn't been touched, hasn't been addressed. That's why there's 2 grievances on it. And there's that deadline, you say here at the table, but here at the table, we never come to the table. You
we've been at the
cancel- you cancel
table,
meetings, you
excuse
cancel
me,
meetings.
we have been at the table every week. Like I said, we have the interim deputy city manager, we have the HR director, we have the IT director, we have the interim budget director, and we have the first assistant city attorney. We have a large city to run, right?
Correct.
So we have committed to doing this, and the one time that I canceled was a personal reason, and I hope that you understand that. I don't understand, like, if something happened to your family,
I understand, but like today, we're supposed to meet at 10 AM, it got changed to 1 o'clock.
right, because that's when we were available, because we wanted committed to meeting here, and we committed to making this a productive session. So the time that we could meet, because our city leaders also have obligations, are that we could meet at 1:10. And we had been sitting here and meeting since about, we were sitting at the table at 1:10. We had printer problems, but we started the public session as soon as, and we had already done stuff. So we're
You're asking
here,
me to stop my grievance, and I don't see the point to it. If these things are already done, and it's at the fire chief's table, well, then
Why are they not out yet?
he can choose to remedy the thing, put out the policy next week, show us the policy next week, or we just keep going through the grievance process. I mean, why are you asking us to put a pause on something?
so that we can I'm asking you to pause it so that we can resolve it. That's
I guess what he's saying, it would get resolved if you would release the new policy.
Have y'all conferred with him and discussed this new policy with him? Did you work on it?
But we're at
The
the
fire
table,
chief
so
knows.
we can ask for it, right?
Fire chief now. To my knowledge, the memo has not been touched, to my knowledge.
Is the is the memo
Differently, but-
related to the policy?
Yes, it
Yes.
refers to, the memorandum is specifically titled subject outside employment.
Okay, and so
then-
is the
Okay.
policy.
So the outside employment, from what I understand, what I've been told by our city attorney is that he has been dealing with you
Mhm.
and with David on it.
Yes.
And that you all are very close.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
On the SOP,
So let's
yes,
bring
ma'am.
it to the table.
On the
On the
SOP, yes.
yes, ma'am.
On the
On the
SOP,
memo,
Yes.
we've talked about it, but there
I-
hasn't been anything put forward. I haven't seen anything
On the memo.
on the memo.
So those are 2 separate items.
It go,
There's
they're two
two
separate
they're
items,
they're
they go
hand in hand, they're hand in hand.
They
When
are,
the SOP
they are hand in hand, but I believe that the grievance on the memorandum is on the definition or how the interpretation of exchange buyback. And right now, the new
Payback.
memo.
Payback.
Payback, forgive me, I'm sorry. So on that particular issue, we've already discussed that it's not, you don't have to take the 5 paybacks that same month. It's just a time period where you can take those, for those paybacks. And according to your policies already, you have a time limit
Yes,
on
4
how
months.
long you can take those paybacks. And we've discussed this already.
And they have been approved?
We've discussed this already, and we've even come to terms, and we've even had people from your side talk to us and say, well, what about this exception? We've taken it under consideration, and we are making those changes. There are changes being made to address your concerns, Mr. Chapa, that are directly with your grievance.
Sure.
Okay, and there's a reason why you guys haven't seen it yet. It's because what I believe Ms. Roxy wants to do here is, if we can resolve it here without this policy or before pushing it out, let's try to do it. That's what it is. And it's not stopping your grievance. It's just putting it on pause to see if we can address and hear your concerns at the table. Because that would mean longer lasting remedies as opposed to a policy, right? Because if it's in the contract, it has more teeth than a policy, correct? Or we can make sure that the
So
policy.
you're right, what you're saying is correct. We already TA'd it, right? We already TA'd what.
We bring
What-
it back?
No, we already TA'd it, right? We already discussed it. We're all on the same page as far as what defines or what what is it, the exchanges and paybacks are,
Yes, sir.
right? What we're finding or what we're grieving is the fact that you can't go back and try to redefine or change just for your definition, right? Which is the fire chiefs. That is what we're finding. So you're asking us to stop that. We're all spinning our wheels if we're on the.
Made 5 exchanges last month. And I'm supposed to pay them back, I'd say this month. But what the memo said, it takes away my right to now make 5 exchanges, because I'm doing 5 paybacks this month. And what the fire chief wrote in that memo, just what he wrote, I haven't seen revisions. He says, if I work 5 paybacks, my right to an exchange in this month is gone.
The revision addresses that.
Okay.
The revision addresses that.
The
think
the only thing,
You just
and
haven't seen it, that's the problem, you just haven't seen it, and that's why you're a little hesitant of believing anything that we're saying right now, because you haven't seen it.
I mean, I appreciate the
If we're at
the
the
free
table,
legal
we're gonna fix it,
advice,
bring it out,
but
let's
I'm
get it out.
not gonna take it because it's not my legal team, you know, you guys give me free legal advice and I appreciate it, but
But we're
I
being
don't wanna go-
recorded.
Technically,
I understand.
we are your legal team just outside of the context of this table, so we wear multiple hats, sir.
Sure.
under the initial grievance, and I have one because one of them's on my behalf. What I asked for remedy or adjustment sought is to rescind all memos and policies pertaining to secondary employment and bring it to the table. So this is what we want. Except by putting a pause to it, it still has the memo, has the policy, and you're still trying to change the language on the contract. This is where we're hesitant on abating at all. Because what I'm asking for is, you know, what you want. Except the fact you still want to put the memo out, you still want to put the SOP out. Well, not you, but, well, what I'm saying,
Right.
on your behalf.
But it will be done simultaneously. That's the
Well, the
point.
thing is, we don't need to have the memo and this SOP out at all. We've already addressed a good amount of that language concerning the paybacks, which even a language that you had proposed to change until we explained the difference of it. So the language itself that's affecting has already been here and we've already addressed it. I understand we're in talks, but you're asking me to pause a procedure that we already put in play because we still haven't seen anything come forward. It's unfair to having basically to do both sides on something that you're proposing, which is already a remedy.
Well, that's why I'm asking, and
We
the
can
city's
rem-
asking.
We can remedy it
to-
right here.
To abate it so that we can remedy it right here without any detriment to the process or to the grievance procedure or the due process that's allowed.
Can we remedy it without having to abate it? Even then, whatever we come to an agreement with,
If we
pretty much
can,
rescind
we can meet and we'll have a subcommittee on that, on the grievances and see if we can work them out. But because my goal is that when we leave here with the contract that we resolve the grievances as well. I don't want to leave this table with
No, and we-
grievances
and
on there.
And we're under the same, we're under the
Right.
same understanding.
And
Right.
what we're getting is there's already something being worked on.
Right,
Why
there
can't we
has-
just bring that up and then get it
And we
out?
can talk about it
think
right
we
now.
can.
I mean, we're already there with the language. I mean, it's just a couple of touch-ups to it and let's get it out.
So what I propose is that we, that can be a subcommittee that can meet without having to post. We don't need a quorum. We don't need to post for that. Have a subcommittee of the legal department and the fire chief if necessary, and whoever the representatives are, so that when we can utilize, if it can be resolved then it can be resolved then, and any issues that we can have the public meeting on, with regard to clarifying any kind of language, so. Okay, we'll just discuss that for your caucus, and we're willing to do a subcommittee on that. Okay,
Sounds good.
all right. And that means that if I'm not available, it's still, you can still have that, that
Yeah.
conference to resolve it.
Yes.
Okay. So, that's, we're gonna need to caucus before we move on with anything else, and we were gonna, I don't know if you have any proposals to place on the table at this time. Do you know when we may be able to anticipate, a proposal on Article 16 on the ad pays?
We have been,
We did have a proposal.
well, we did, had a proposal last time, it didn't have any changes to it, but, we've been talking to our members, and it's something that, I guess, been throwing around, and we don't have anything written. It's a lengthy article, I guess, and, we probably won't have anything today as far as, but it's something that we could have a discussion on.
Okay, well, we can, we invite the discussion. We have to take that into consideration, when we're, working on our economic counter proposals. So if we can do that, it would help, move this forward, so.
I mean, we have talked about, and it's something that we're gonna have further discussion during our
Sure.
caucus, but I mean, we have discussed maybe a set amount to some of those, I guess, stipends. When
Okay.
it comes to it, but I think we'll have further discussion and see, what we could, I guess, let's come up with
Okay,
overall.
all right. Well, I need to caucus with my team, and y'all can take that caucus. Let's check, I probably need about an hour. Let's touch base about 45 minutes to an hour and see where we're at.
What do we expect after the caucus? Just
I've got to meet with my team. So
So
we're waiting on the discussion or the counter proposal for Article 16, so we can move on to economic items. We're back in session. It's 4:35 PM.
Okay.
Do you have any proposals to present? I do have some questions, a couple of questions on the retirement data. So whenever, I don't know how you want to do that. If we want to do that
We
now.
could start with that.
Okay, we'll start with, I just need, I'm really confused as to, you said that, one of the changes in both Plan A and Plan B is to raise the drop age. I really don't understand what the drop means. Somebody was trying to explain to me that it was almost, it's like a lump sum payment. Is that what, so can you explain that to me, I guess, so I can understand what that means?
So currently, you have to have 21 years of service,
Okay,
the age, and that's the minimum, and age 51 to, I guess you could say, start your drop. But you're not tied to a number. Once you reach your retirement age, let's say age 53, you can drop back 2 years or a few months, it's up to you. But it's basically a lump sum payment of what the pension would have paid you had you retired 6 months ago, 2 years ago, max is 2 years. But it's a lump sum payment that they pay you.
Okay,
It's,
And
I'm
then-
sorry, is it based on months?
It's,
Like 12 months,
Up to
24,
51, right,
36?
like going back to 51, the difference,
it's,
right?
it's up
2 years.
to 24 months, and it's based on months, yes. So you could ask for 1 month, lump sum payment,
Mhm.
6 months, 8 months, up to 24 months. But you have to be older than 51 years and more than 21 years of service. And what that does is, when you get that lump sum payout, then those months get eliminated from your calculation. So that's why earlier one of the guys said, it reduces your years of service by 2 years, and so you take the max. So if
okay,
you have 28 years of service, and you say, give me 2 years of drop, well, now the year's not gonna be 28 years that you work, it's gonna be 26 years. So that's your multiplier now.
okay. So you
Times-
basically take
times the 3.
a lump sum payment, to drop the, up to 2 years
Yes.
from your service
Yes,
years that go into the calculation of the rest of your benefit?
yes.
Okay,
So it
The monthly
becomes now
benefit.
26 times 3 for simple math, right? So now you're taking 78% instead of, yeah, above 80% or whatever that is, but it's 3 times 26 years of service. But also, so now you drop down to 26, so now whatever promotion or pay increase is not in your final average of what you would have gained those 2 years. So now you were looking back 3 years or 4 years from that 26 year of service. From that point back becomes your calculation of the final average.
okay,
So there's a reduction on your monthly payout, and it's usually about $500
okay.
reduction.
If
taking those
you take the
drops.
max,
We take the max
okay.
on average.
That helps. And then my other question was, these 2 plans that are being voted on, I know there's 3 options, there's no change, Plan A and Plan B, right? Plan A and Plan B have changes to the benefits and changes to the age that you can qualify for retirement, and raises the drop age, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when do those take into effect?
January 1st.
And who does it affect? Are there any current memberships that will be locked in or grandfathered per se in the old calculation?
So what happens whenever there's a benefit change, there is a snapshot of that prior day, but it stays there basically for everyone, but eventually the new plan outweighs the benefit of the old plan, no matter how drastic the change is, because you continue to accumulate those years of service. Maybe you accumulate pay increases, rank structure going upward, or you get pay increase and stuff like that. So just every time there's a change, there's a snapshot of what was there, because basically when you're hired, you're promised a certain set of benefits, right? And those benefits can change, but those were promised to you, so they're there. We have a cadet class right now. Those benefits are there, but eventually the new benefits are gonna outweigh the benefits of the old.
And they get to choose?
They don't get to choose, the actuary actually tells you whichever one's better.
Okay,
So whatever number for you is better, that's what the actuary will give you.
so the change becomes effective January 1
Yes,
of 2023, right?
yes.
But say somebody retires on January 2nd or 3rd, do they still get the benefit calculations of the old rate, or would it be the new rate? Or the new plan?
If they take a drop, it will be the new rate. If they don't take a drop and they retire normal, then they will look at that snapshot December 30th or 31st. December's 31. So December 31st snapshot, they will look at your benefits then, and compared to, you mentioned 2 days later, they will compare them.
Okay,
And the new calculation is gonna be without overtime, so. You know, a couple of days of overtime that's calculated in there, the old benefit will probably be better. But like you saw on this list, there's a driver that never worked a day of overtime, so his calculation is not affected.
so so there is basically a transition period for the,
Not really.
Not exactly.
No, it's
But-
a hard change, other than the promised benefit that is there currently is still available, just like we made changes back in 2017. But because of time, and like we said, that factor, that multiplier of 3, so 5 years of service gives you 15% more than what you were making in 2017 because of the years of service. So you gained, 5 years of service in 2017, and when you multiply it times that factor of 3, that's increasing your benefit by 15% going forward. So, like I said, the new benefit, even though how drastic the changes are, will eventually outweigh the old one.
right, but that's not gonna happen right away, because people retiring after January 1, 2023, if one of the plans that changed the benefits is voted or approved, you're still gonna have retirees retiring and getting the old benefit before the change, right?
Most of the people will probably leave because they'll say, why am I gonna stay if I'm not gonna earn any more in my take home?
So most people will leave and they'll be under the old calculation?
Well,
Right.
not most, there's only a few people that are eligible, right, for retirement that are over age 50 to retire and years of service.
So the people who are locked in, is it only the people who are eligible for retirement on the last day of,
Yes.
right before the change?
Well, everybody gets a snapshot calculation, so no one's locked in, because if they choose to take a drop, then that snapshot is gone. And they take a drop and they take a benefit with no overtime calculated in there, if they worked in,
Do cadets contribute into the pension?
yes.
Okay.
From day
So
one,
they
every day.
So-
themselves get a snapshot. Like, for example, I worked 10 years.
Right.
I get snapshotted here, but I still have 20 years to go. At the end, when I reach those extra 20 years, they will still look at my 20 years ago snapshot, but obviously this one's gonna be way
Because
much
you
better
put in
because of the years
more
of service,
time.
right?
Okay,
So it's not something that we can't modify this snapshot, but
Right.
by law, that's, it's.
yeah, and that's all I'm trying to understand, because it, when you look at it and you're saying, oh, we're voting on a plan and it's gonna change the plan, it doesn't automatically change it for everybody. That's why when I said transition period, there may be a better word for it, but the old calculation is still gonna be available to certain retirees. Or they have the option of taking the old calculation versus the new calculation,
If they
right?
retire normal, yes.
Right. But people who are gonna retire in this next year are gonna retire because of the benefit plan changes. They're gonna retire because they want to preserve and retire with the benefit under the old calculation, right?
Correct.
Okay. And did the actuary or anybody else do an analysis of how quickly the change in benefit plans is going to impact the amortization rate or years?
I want to say they did, but I don't recall the information, but I'm sure it's on that study. On theredfire.com. I know that was one of the questions in July when we had an explanation of the ballot to the membership. The actuaries came down and explained, I know that was a question of, how soon are we gonna see this? And have you even calculated that, say, normal retirements anywhere, look at this list, anywhere from 20 to 5 to 2 people. We usually say about 10 to 12 people leave. So we think there might be a little spike of maybe 25 people leaving, 30 people leaving. But the benefits are gonna outweigh in the long term, making this reduction and not counting overtime anymore a huge benefit to the pension and its health.
Okay.
So there might be a little spike of retirement, but in the long term, it's gonna put the pension in a better path.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? No? Okay. Okay, those are the questions I have on the retirement that I looked at right now. And then, I believe the fire chief and Mr. Rodriguez went and spoke to y'all about the grievances. Were you able to obtain the information that you were seeking on the 3 grievances?
They did give us information, and like I said, we had already talked about it. Like I said, we had talked about it over the phone, gone back and forth on it. It's just the implementation of the policy and the memos as written.
So, okay, so we, as I understand that the policy was revised, right? And what do you mean by the implementation of
Sent
the
out as
policy
an
and the
email.
memo?
Send it as
Send it as an email
Put it
to our
out.
stations. Provide it to our membership.
Oh, is that, and if, based on what was presented to you or, and what they discussed with you, if that is the policy that is sent out, would that resolve the 3 grievances?
That'll resolve my grievance.
Okay, it'll resolve your grievance. I think you
I
need to look
haven't-
and see, because I think the memo and the memo was explaining the old policy. Am I right?
That is correct.
And so the new policy is gonna be, so the memo and the old policy went hand in hand because the memo was trying to explain the old policy. Now there's a revised policy. Did you get the information on the revised policy?
On the policy, yes, I've read the revised policy and just, I guess, information of what's going to happen to that memo. I'm sure there's going to be something that says revised or whatever, and that's what we're saying. I guess it's got to.
So the memo, right.
It's got to be sent out, revised.
So the memo was, as my understanding, the memo was sent out to explain the first policy that was the issue, that was at issue. Now there is a new policy, so the memo becomes moot because that was on the second policy. Is that right?
Yes, and as per the chief, he will be sending out a new memo with a new effective date, and it will be a revision of that one that is part of your grievance.
Correct.
Okay, and we just want to know, based on what we discussed with those revisions, would that be enough to satisfy, and it doesn't have to be official, would those revisions satisfy your grievance?
The way he explained it, yes.
Okay,
I haven't had the time to read it, but yes.
okay, fantastic.
So we, and then there's one other grievance, and I don't know if the grievance is here, but I believe it covers the same subjects. So if you can visit with that grievance and see if, based on what you're saying, and right now we're asking, because before we send it out, we wanted to ensure that we made sure to address the issues so that there wasn't another we're trying to address the issue.
Sure.
And so at this point, I think we'll go ahead and let the chief know that he can email the revisions, and then if there's any other issues, we can further discuss them. But we're working towards resolving it, and we believe we have worked out a resolution to all 3 grievances, and we just need to, to confirm that once you're able to fully read it, look at it, and the policy, that the revised policy is what's going to be sent out. Okay. Okay, do you have any counter proposals for us?
Article 18. What? Oh, okay.
There's space over here, guys. There's space over here.
Why don't they want to sit over there?
They were
Under Article 18, we've looked over what you had proposed. We decided to just withdraw our proposal for Article 18 completely and leave language as is, as read to the current the current collective bargaining.
There's a little space on growth on that little section 600, G space ROSS, I think.
Oh,
A typo.
A little, yeah.
Sorry.
Is that-
The G, the G,
Copy paste, kind of.
the G Ross,
You know.
The G-
600 G
Yeah.
Ross.
I was giving, our,
Don't sell those uniforms
our
out.
IT guy, our IT guy.
You were saying that, we were gonna be doing a complete, new contract with another provider, so, hey.
At least we'll get the good price.
You're leaving it alone.
As is.
Okay. And the understanding on 18.3 is that this stays the same and that the chief may require the dress, Class A uniform be worn by members of the fire department, on special occasions such as national holidays, parades, ceremonies, visits to the department by dignitaries or other formal inspections, provided that these uniforms are issued by the city.
Yes,
And that's the same language. Okay.
So what happened to the tennis shoes, Nala?
I guess as long as we follow current practice where they
Yeah,
provide, you
the
know, I
policy.
think we're fine with that, just to not get in the, I guess, into the weeds of, you know, OSHA and, you know,
Sure.
what, you know.
Because we have to
we're-
follow those standards anyway,
Yeah,
for everybody.
we've been following the same practice where they
Okay.
do place them there and the guys know that they can't wear them out on call, just to allow them to purchase them, to be able to exercise at the stations or just to, you know, walk around at the station. I think that's, you know,
Okay.
we have no problem with it. And I think that the chief.
And
has no problem with
basically
it.
with this article, the current, like we talked about when we first proposed it, like, the issue at hand was the fact of the pricing of the equipment or the uniforms that we're getting was kind of getting out of hand. And if we're gonna continue to go down that line, well, it was gonna have to be, you know, reinforced because dollar doesn't stretch as much as it used to. Now we understand some of the practices that they were having, the people that were providing these were questionable at best, I guess. Basically get the most, the city gets the most for their money out of $600 uniform wise, so we can all be in, with uniformity.
Employee also.
The intention is
Oh, yeah, sorry.
that changed, right?
Yeah,
Right,
not
that's
change,
the
like,
intention.
go back, exactly.
She does the red pen with me all the time too.
This purple.
Purple,
Not only that, the font is also wrong.
yeah.
So-
So the other thing I would like to mention on that with the vendor, because we have vendor contracts and they have specific provisions that they must follow. If there is an issue like that again, please somehow inform the chief's office or the legal department, because there's remedies for us to be able to hold them to what they promised. But we can't do it unless we know it, and we have to sometimes we have to send them a letter to cure. And we have to make sure that we follow all these processes before we can cancel or default on the, cancel the contract, which is, if they're not following it, then that's what we need to do. So we want, in order for us to be able to enforce our legal remedies against them, just communication and say, hey, this is kind of weird. Our boots went from, $200 to $600, and, that takes up my whole allocation. Then that's something we need to know about so we can address with the vendor.
Some of the membership would bring it up, hey, we're getting this duffel bag where, because it's us, we're getting it for $45. But then they go back and, hey, well, they're stating that their normal price is at $30. Some guys are like, hey, it's cheaper than that. Like, yeah, we can't go with a special. We look at their normal price. But if we're getting marked up another $10, $15 on a
Yeah, just
small,
on the regular price.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
that's where we find out about this issue. But yeah, I mean, we'll bring it up and let the city know about that, because like I say, it's both not beneficial neither to the firefighter nor to the department or the city, because, I mean, the city's gonna pay because they're gonna pay, that's what's allowed.
Right.
But if they're paying for something that's, subpar, or paying a premium on something that shouldn't have to be paying a premium on, like, it doesn't benefit either side.
Okay. All right, well, we'll take, after we're done with this session, we'll take a quick caucus, but we can, I'm just need to confirm with my team that we can tentatively do a tentative agreement on this.
Okay. No, we did. That's another one that we did.
If y'all need to take a
No, no.
short break, oh, okay.
The next one is Article 11. The counter proposal, the date on that was from the last meeting, we just ran out of time and weren't able to propose it.
Oh, okay.
This goes back to the counter, which we proposed last time on 11.5. At the end, we added, if said employee was put on leave without pay upon being compliant to the City of Laredo's drug and alcohol policy, employee shall be reimbursed wages and benefits.
Are they
So-
not already on the clock?
Yeah,
Well, no, the thing, because if, we might not remember, but under 11.5, our original proposal was to take out without pay, because we are doing a random, is it?
It's after.
Post,
This is
sorry,
for
this is
post-accident and
I'm sorry,
post-injury.
for post-accident, post-injury, the option there, or what could have been, not that had been done, but was put without pay.
oh,
We
and,
we posed to strike it originally, your counter proposal was to leave it in. All we're stating on that one is, if he is to be without pay, post-injury, once he clears, that those monies, be it one shift, two shifts, whatever it is, to be reimbursed back to him.
so when you're saying compliant to the drug and alcohol policy, you're saying that if somebody was placed on leave as deemed necessary by the fire department after, for a post-accident or post-injury, usually that has something to do with reasonable suspicion, like there's an obvious problem.
Yes.
But if something like that happens and they're put on leave without pay, and then they pass the drug test and all, whatever the policy requires, and when you say compliant with it, that means that they were found to have negative drug tests, then the employee shall be reimbursed wages and benefits.
Yes.
Okay. Has there been an issue with this
No,
particular?
and that's why our original language was to strike out without,
There's never been an
because there's
incident
never
where
been
a
no incident
person,
ever.
I guess, goes into into testing procedures and not get paid, right? So that's why we kind of wanted to get rid of it to begin with, but I guess, the city, on your side, you wanted to leave it as an option, just in case those, egregious, incidents, So our only ask is, if it happens, and if he's, cleared of everything, just that the employee, receive their benefits.
In the event that it doesn't.
I'm not known of an incident that's happened.
No, and actually, right now, the current practice is, in case of not injury, but in case post-accident, they're made to stay at work, just not
Not
respond to anything. You're not responding to anything. You're not allowed to do anything, neither with not driving,
It
but.
says no emergency calls or operate any machinery
You
or
just stay at the
vehicle.
station.
They can't even go for groceries.
No, they're not allowed.
But they're there at the station.
Yeah, they're at the
station on the
Okay,
clock.
so because I've never known that we've sent them on leave without pay, I've never known of a
Yeah,
situation.
it's never
like that.
happened.
Okay.
That's
I
all.
just
Which is
wanted
what we
wanted
You made me take a deep
And
pause.
that's why
No, that's why we had proposed to.
Originally
without
strike it
pay,
because
since
it
we
had
already-
never happened, but
we're
I
already
mean,
doing
if it is left, then not that it's gonna be a practice to be, put it forward now unless it's
Right.
an agreement.
And
Normally,
this,
and I guess if it was that obvious, it wouldn't actually be there.
So let
So-
me just say this, if an employee tests positive any type of illegal controlled substance or overabuse, our going blank right now. Our drug testing facility will automatically tell us, and then at that point, we'll call your department director and say, we've got to put him out.
Mhm.
So there's a process, and the employee has the right for a split specimen, so there's a complete process there, but to my knowledge, if an employee's positive on anything, they're not going to be on the clock,
Mhm.
so.
Yep.
Okay.
Right, and I think that was usually for any kind of incident where it would be a safety issue for the firefighter and or the department or other employees. That if there was some sort of reasonable suspicion or some other, something related to the post-accident or post-injury, that it would allow the administration or the management just to get, say you can't be here because it's reasonable suspicion requires that it's obvious,
And I mean, even putting reasonable suspicion in, if we could add that and keep everything else normal, so where the guy's at the station still, but if there's a reasonable suspicion that he is, then the fire chief has the right to send him home without pay.
So let me take this
But then
back
if
and
the
look
specimen
at
comes
it.
back negative, then he does get reimbursed.
Okay,
Because I mean, that's understood, reasonable suspicion, we would fall under it for a lot of other things too. It doesn't have to be an accident.
yeah, and I have to look at it in the context of the whole article, and I need to discuss this with my team. But
So
okay.
just so I can understand, so what you all are saying, if somebody's placed on reasonable suspicion, post-accident drug and alcohol testing, we're just saying that the employee will be paid, is that what you're talking about?
If
If
his
he-
testing comes back,
If he's negative,
If they're put on leave without pay,
we never done it.
I know, but if it happens,
Then
if
they'll
it happens that
come
they
back.
get put on leave without pay, and then the drug pay them back.
the violation is that you're assuming, or you have the reasonable suspicion that he may be on something, but if he goes and he passes the test and it's negative, well, then you can't send him home and not pay him because he was on the clock. He shouldn't have been sent home.
Okay. Any other questions? You have any others?
That's it for me.
Okay. Did you want to discuss Article 16, or do you want to come back continue having discussions with your team and come back and discuss that at a later time? Or at the next meeting?
You wanna put something on the table, and we can talk about it right now.
Say that again?
You have an idea of something you wanna talk about concerning that article, we can talk about it right now.
So we've placed our proposal on the table to, we propose a change in the structure of the percentage ad pays. And one of the part of the proposal was a grandfathering kind of system and change to the structure, because number one, we didn't want to change what the firefighters right now who are getting ad pays are getting. And we wanted to change the structure of the ad pays to remain competitive, yet remain sustainable and fiscally responsible in terms of the contract for the new firefighters that are being appointed and coming on, and the classes that are gonna be coming in. So that was our start at that. We did have some, there was some feedback about the potential for what grandfathering does, but a change in any kind of structure like this is always, there's always gonna be some difficulties or some issues that you have to deal with, such as that you're dealing with in the pension system when you're changing benefits, and you're actually having to change and come down on some benefits like that. There's gonna be people that get affected by that. So our goal is to address that situation, yet in a way that keeps Laredo, competitive within the market, for the, or within, competitive with regard to comparable cities, that it's something that is sustainable and the city can continue to honor that obligation, and something that attracts and retains firefighters. So that's our goal, and we're just trying to address, and that's what we started off with our proposal. When we received the counter proposal, there was no change, but I believe at the table, the union said that they would be talking to their membership and their team and seeing if and what kind of ideas that we could discuss. So we're willing to discuss those ideas or entertain a counter proposal that may help address those ideas. And so that's what we're asking for. We're asking for a counter proposal that would address those situations other than just leaving it the same, because we don't want to end up in a, in the next contract or a future contract where we come to a point where we can't afford it and that we can't do anything to base pay, that we might have to do something to, to address the ad pays in a much more devastating kind of way.
I think
And
we've-
so,
I think we've been talking to our members, like
Okay.
you said, you mentioned it last time, I think when it comes to, we can discuss anything at the table, right? But if we propose something that we know we're not gonna be able to pass through our members, I think it'd be, I guess, a waste of time on both our sides, right? And we've been throwing back and forth different ideas with our members and see what they feel, Obviously, nobody on this table or within our membership wants to divide our group to say we have something and the other individuals coming in have something else, right? We've seen some of the effects some of the things that happened in the past, and I don't think it's something that has been, I guess, productive, I guess, on our side, as far as, the way we, I guess, take care of each other. I think there has been numbers thrown around. I think one proposed things that, some we've been talking amongst ourselves and towards our members is maybe increasing that, you get a 10% right now for paramedic, right? And you get a 10% for masters, right? So maybe possibly increasing it to a 15%, and having that number, just getting that amount and then just having that number. So it doesn't get factored in with
You mean
overtime.
Combine it, or what are you saying?
I guess you could do a 15%, for example, a 15% for paramedic, get that dollar amount for whatever rank it would be, and get that fixed amount. And then a 15% for that master's, and get whatever that fixed amount is for that rank, and get what number it is, whatever number it is, and then just set it at that amount. I think that's, increasing it initially, but then, I think one of the biggest things that, on the city side that they don't like is that, anytime you work overtime, that it gets factored in as a percentage, so the number goes up, right? So maybe increasing it initially to maybe enticing our members to agree with it, would be something, I guess, that we've been talking about, see if it works or if it doesn't,
So let me understand, you're saying you would consider a fixed amount in both the paramedic and the masters?
Well, basically, I believe you addressed any percentage. pay.
No, he named those two. So
I think,
Well,
I think
want
he's
to
giving, yeah, he's
He's
giving
giving
examples.
those specifically as examples.
Because we came to the table and said, even if we start with some, so that's why I want clarification.
Mhm.
So in order to understand what you're saying, is it starting off with those two?
Well, I guess as an example, right?
Or
Ideas are still
are you
being thrown
looking at
around.
all of them for now?
Ideas are being thrown around. I think those are I guess, the two major ones that most of our members get. So those are the only ones that we looked at. We haven't really gone through all of them specifically, right?
But the
So,
ones that most of the membership give are the paramedic and
I guess, for example,
And
we
the
just
paramedic
talked.
and
for
the
example,
masters.
masters.
Yeah,
So you
so
would move it up 5% more to 15% at a fixed rate?
at a fixed rate, yeah,
Okay,
so.
that's what
factored in.
you're thinking.
Yeah, that's what we're.
Attached to right there.
Attached
to
to
rent.
Attached to it.
Yeah, well, it would be, so what, okay, and it would be different ranks, and we're just talking ideas, right?
Mhm.
So it would be a fixed amount equal to, for instance, 15% of whatever the captain base pay is for a captain.
Yeah.
That would be, so it would be different
So it would be
amounts
the-
for
Yes, it'd
different
be different.
ranks.
Yeah, it would be. So,
And as you would go up, I guess, if you changed rank, you would then qualify for that
other-
ad pay.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, those are some of the ideas that we've been throwing around. I guess, they're still in the early stages, you
Of
know,
course,
it's
yeah.
nothing, I guess, just to present something at the table, you know, just to let you know where we're at, and, you know, we're still, you know, we're 300 and over 350 guys, right? So I mean, we do need to talk to all our guys, and sometimes it takes a while, but,
Of course.
Oh,
So-
so this is not on the table yet.
No,
Well,
they're not
it's-
putting it on the table, they're throwing away, they're throwing ideas,
I mean, I
we're just
guess-
having a discussion.
I
And I
guess
think,
it's-
I think what would be, what that may help then is, just as we're having this discussion and we're talking about ideas, maybe talking about those ideas, we could take into consideration and we can come up with whatever, with counter proposals on that.
So,
So
I
that's
mean,
why it's important that we talk
I guess
about
putting
it.
on,
You
putting
wanted to
on,
TA it already?
No, I wanted to cost it out. I wanted to see where we were.
so I mean,
Yeah,
I
'cause
guess
we
just
need
putting
cost
it on
it
the
out.
table, I mean, is that something that the cities, you know, what are the city thoughts? I guess
Yeah,
when it comes to something
that's the
like
thing,
that.
it's, we need to consider it and look at it, crunch the numbers, we need to see what it costs,
Mhm.
what it would look like, how it would affect it, see what the cost is and see what the impact is, but we'll start, on our side, we'll crunch numbers and, we can even present an example and just not that we're, depending on, we'll work on our counter proposal, but just for information for everybody, we can cost it out, you know, like the example that you're saying, and maybe cost it out and see what that number looks like.
I mean,
We
I
can
think,
go through
I
that
think it's,
exercise.
I think in a way, sometimes it's hard to cost out, right? Because it's hard to factor in how much that individual works in overtime, right? So
Well,
I think
it would
always
be,
goes up, you know.
yeah, but
those
it would be
percentages.
easy right now to cost out the one without overtime, and then possibly we could anticipate based on what the average is, and we can maybe have a separate column, say this is anticipated overtime that would be related to this,
Mhm.
you know, flat-based ad pay on that, on something that looks like that. We could figure something out, but I think that'd be a good exercise to go through and see what it looks like. So, and this, I'm glad we're having this discussion. I appreciate, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Like I said,
So-
this goes back to, you know, the consensus originally for the membership is that don't touch it. No matter what, don't touch it. Now I understand cost to it and everything, but like I said, we can negotiate all day for weeks on end. If the membership is not gonna be in agreement to it, we're wasting time, we're spinning our wheels. So, and that's where we kind of come up with these ideas, like, we have to be able to have something where we can sell to this membership, because if not, it's gonna be shut down.
Okay.
So it goes back to, you know, why, you know, it's not gonna affect anybody right now, but the immediate thing that we heard is that, you know, what dividing us, and we understand it, dividing us like that, the repercussions that's gonna happen down the line, it's gonna be counterproductive to our efforts, you know, above anything else.
How do you deal with something like that? Like, for instance, when you're dealing with the pension and moving, how do you deal with that kind of a divide? Because obviously when when you're dealing with benefits and what has been happening, and that's the thing with negotiations, sometimes you have to shift things around, right?
So
And shift out the
We
benefits.
don't propose tiers like others pensions have. We don't propose tiers. We all basically go in. We know that a few people are gonna walk out the door with the old benefit, but this is gonna affect all of us come January 1st as far as the pension change is approved. It affects us all January 1st. Yes, some memberships are able to walk out, and they walk out, but even our actual destroys the membership, because now you create, the minority becomes the majority, and it's payback time.
So as far as, just to give an insight, as far as with the pension goes, the ones that don't want changes are now the minority, as opposed to the one that want changes, because they're looking at
Their
down the
future.
line, they're looking at the future, what benefits everybody for the greater good, right? So those guys, that's the majority, that's why we're pushing for changes, that's why we move towards that. But the ones that don't want changes, they're the minority now. There's a far and few between guys that, even some young guys that'll say that, I don't want it to change, sorry, but it has to change.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's a situation that the city is faced with here, because even if we leave the contract as it is now, say that there's no changes and the contract continues, we're still experiencing, what is it, about an estimated $1 million increase because of steps and, you know, things are already embedded in the contract. The contract cost doesn't remain the same, it still keeps going up. And so we're still dealing with that, even just with the current contract. And if you start compounding that and looking into the future, you're gonna wind up with the same situation where what we're trying to do is look for the greater good, because we wanna continue to keep giving good ad pays and good base pay across the board. And it's been, the city of Laredo has achieved that and gone beyond that, and is extremely competitive with even the very large cities and the metroplexes. And so that's where, from our perspective, to sustain that, to be fair to the firefighters, to continue to be able to give them good ad pays, but yet still remain competitive with everybody, because you know, the ad pays are extremely far ahead of a lot of other cities. How can we do that and yet create a structure that is sustainable?
For
And
the
that's
entire city.
and sustainable not only for the firefighters, but for the entire city, because we, you know, it is to the detriment, it's a contractual obligation. And in order to pay that large amount, which is, I think this year was over $6 million, sometimes we have to find the money from somewhere else, so.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned steps, and I always hear it as it's an additional cost, but you saved on that person's salary, because when you promoted to captain or to any other position that has steps, firefighter, we look at it then that the city's saving money because you're not paying that full salary that they will get in 3 years. It takes them 3 years to get that full salary. So for those first 2 years, a captain's standard is the same for a 1-day captain and a 3-year captain. Standard's the same, but you're paying them significantly less money. So, you know, I always hear it at the table, well, we have to consider steps and the cost is gonna go up next year. But, you know, you're getting the same service and you're getting it for, at some savings.
Right, and well, steps, what steps are already embedded raises as you progress through your years of service, right?
Sure.
So that's what it is. So we're not getting it for cheap. We're rewarding and that part of that is of the ability to retain a good firefighters and
The
maintain them in
workforce,
rank.
to be able to maintain the ranks.
Right, and to maintain the ranks. So, so those are embedded raises that get affected by any increase in the base pay, and are completely affected by the percentage in the ad pays. Because as you go up the steps, the ad pay goes up too, because it's a percentage. But yet, you know, we still face that the contract increases in price every year, even if it stayed the same. Okay. So what we were gonna do from the city side, we're going to adjourn from our side. We're working on our counter proposals. I think the discussion on Article 16 was very helpful, and that we'll be able to come up, be able to
Extension also.
talk
We were
about
hoping
that.
to maybe get a chance to talk about the pension. I don't know if the city had any kind of proposal as far as a pension. You know, we have a vote coming up, you know, this next week. And I think it's important, you know, as far as the guys having more information to be able to vote on a certain plan. You know, we wouldn't want guys to vote present plan just out of, you know, hey, it's a partnership, but the city isn't wanting to, you know, put anything on the table, you know, so should we go
So
with present plan?
the proposal that the city has at the moment is to, the proposal that we have on the table is to contribute an additional 1% over divided evenly amongst the first 4 years of the contract, 0.25 for years 1 through 4. And that money, that additional contribution is conditional on the firefighters voting to contribute a 1% and a commitment to change the benefits, and conditional on a policy passed by the board to maintain that the citizen members of the board are true objective citizens. So that's what we have, and we're working on the counter proposal. Like I said, we have to, when we look at the economic impacts, we have to look at them as a whole. And so we plan to be able to address that at the next meeting. And I think I have the impasse extension agreement I have proposed and placed on the table. I need to confirm with my team, but the next time that I'm available to meet is on the 29th, Thursday. And that's what, no,
Only the morning. She'll have to meet without me.
well, we're gonna try and work out the 29th. We're gonna see what we, but that's the only
Well,
day
this,
that I
this
have.
is another concern of ours, concerning the extension is we already signed one, it was for 15 days, and we met for 1.5 days. We're trying to address issues, and we're trying to do it in a timely manner. What's the purpose of signing another extension if we're gonna meet in it one more time? I mean, we've been trying.
So the extension goes until October 11th. And we have, in the last 2 weeks, we met we did half a day Thursday on the 8th and a full day on Friday. And when we meet, we're meeting a full day. Although the public session usually starts around 10, our team starts working at 8. I start working before that, but we start working at 8 o'clock at the very least.
Yes, ma'am, but the extension didn't happen until after the 11th.
So
September,
we signed.
September
right.
the 11th was.
I'm going there. So at that time, we're dealing with some heavy issues that need a lot of number crunching, a lot of data. And so on the 9th, we signed the extension for the 15 days, and the statute only allows us to do 15 days at a time. So when we're working, as you see, my team is all the top management and all the relevant people that are important for this issue, but also are needed and relevant in all the other city business that's going on. And so we have committed to meeting once a week for, today was an exception because we couldn't meet for a full day, but we did meet today, the 15th, or excuse me, last time the 15th, which we met for a full day. And then today we have had, even though we've only met half a day, we have had a productive day, and we were able to do our, we did most of our caucus before yesterday, before even the public meeting started. We had our own team meetings. So
I guess what we're trying to say is these things take time and patience. This is not something that we were expecting for you to give us a true solid counter on Article 16, right? And we didn't. We waited 2 meetings to be able to wait just for the ground rules. So there's give and takes. I'm not sure if you don't want to extend it, because we're talking here about an extension, just let us know. Just let us know if you don't want to.
We want
I
to.
mean, let's not even argue.
I know, we want to continue to work.
We
That's
understand.
one of the things that we brought up on the last one, is that we really want to, try and settle down the pension issue. We've barely talked about it today.
we have talked about it a lot. We were talking about the economic issues, and we have to look at it as a whole. Because what we're doing is we're looking at, we have a limited amount of money, and we're allocating it, and we needed information, and we needed to understand what is happening here. And so we're not going to deal with just the pension and do it quickly, because it's a very complicated issue. But do it quickly, and then at the detriment of all the other economic issues. We have to look at it as a whole. And so we have been working on the retirement, and we got the info today, and we did discuss it at length today. We talked about the data that we requested, and we talked about both public sessions that we had. So yeah, we are working on it, and it's not an easy issue, and we're working on a lot of other difficult issues at the same time. And so I've said it before, we're not going to piecemeal the pension. We have placed our proposal along with all of our other economic proposals on the table at this point. And that's where we are, right? That's where we are right now, and we're not prepared to do a counter proposal on the retirement today.
Okay,
We were
so
waiting for the article.
When are we gonna see that?
We were waiting for the Article 16 ad pays, as we had discussed at the last meeting.
Yeah, because we gave you our counter proposal and you wanted to still hear it out. So we heard it out. But to be saying that it's hanging on that specific article and we can't get to any other economic articles on it, like, why don't we just put everything on the table today and piece it together? Because you want to we can
So-
negotiate all in once.
Well, we can negotiate all at once, and what we're doing is we have placed all of our economic issues on the table. We did spend 2 full days on the ground rules. We've been meeting since July, and the proposals that have been placed on the table by the union have asked for increases in all the economic issues, but have not given us anything of value for those requested increases. What the city has done is the city has responded to a lot of the counter proposals that aren't economic in nature. We have responded to the things that we are asking for in addition to the increases that we have already placed on the table to the tune of $11 million. We want value for the money, the additional monies that we're putting on the table. And we have, for instance, like the appointment of the assistant chief. You're saying that you don't want it, but we're trying to bring cohesiveness to the management, let the fire chief be able to manage his department the way that he sees fit. And we're placing all this money on the table, yet you're refusing to bargain on that part. So when we're talking about negotiating and giving them back and forth, that's what it is. When you're asking for something, there has to be some value added to that money. And so that's what we have done. We've been waiting for the union to do it, and we haven't seen it yet. It's just been asking for a lot of, for money. We're still willing to sit down and talk, and that's why we're, when we're negotiating the contract, it's not piecemeal. You're not just negotiating this one sentence or this one article. It's a cohesive document. It's the 4 corners of the contract, and it all has to mesh and blend, and it all has to have value. And so that's the way we're looking at it, and that's the way from here on out, we'll just have to, I guess what we'll do is we'll have to look at it as a package, and we'll put that together.
I thought, well, that's what we were waiting for this meeting, because I know we've already submitted a proposal and a counter, and we've only seen your one proposal. There has not been anything there.
My one, what are you talking about?
The one that you're referencing today, we should have already had another one today,
About what, for which one?
for the one that you passed out today.
The
Which-
revised, the spreadsheet, the revised spreadsheet.
monetary one.
The monetary one?
Monetary ones.
The monetary one was a correction on a formula.
This one's a correction? Yes.
Yes, today that was a correction on a formula.
But it's not a counter proposal to what we've already submitted.
No, we were waiting for a counter proposal from Article 16, like the union said that they were gonna give us today.
We did give a counter. We said we were gonna talk
Right.
about it.
That you were
with
gonna
our members.
reconsider and bring it back to the table.
We said we were gonna talk about it with our members, and that's where we were at. But we did give a counter as far as, what that
No,
proposal
Tony,
was.
you told us when we left, I said, at least give us at least a couple of that we could start with, and you said, yes, we're gonna go ahead and come back.
But we did mention last meeting also as far as, the pension meeting coming up, like the vote and stuff. So that was something that, we did mention that we wanted to talk about most of this meeting as well. And it's something that we discussed some of the numbers that you requested, and that was the majority of the conversation that we had.
Right.
when it comes to-
And we had proposed the 1% with the conditions. We proposed the same 2.67, just spread out different years without addressing any of the conditions. And so we're telling you that's what we have on the table right now.
You're not
And-
even coming back and saying, yes, you know what, we spoke to the pension plan, they agreed or disagreed on saying that we would have true membership. You're not even giving us that back on the
No,
table.
no, but just some point of clarification, and 2 of the board members can correct me if I'm wrong. But the pension board did have that option currently, recently.
Okay, so that you all did talk about it?
No, I'm saying about having true citizens.
We asked you to ask them, and so You were supposed to come back and tell
Yes,
us.
but what I'm trying to say is that you're putting forth that contingent on if you give us any money or any,
Additional.
and any additional money besides what your proposal at, because you're still steadfast on your proposal of day one, even though we came back with a different counter.
You're supposed to come back with.
Yes,
offers.
yes, Ms. Cabello, what I'm trying to say is that you want to have, how you say it, a true.
Representation.
Yes.
Mhm.
This board, if I'm not mistaken, I guess you can ask them, had that option recently, not too long ago.
Yes.
And nothing was.
It was voted, it was a very horrible meeting where it was premeditated. It was premeditated of how it was gonna happen. And that's what we're trying to avoid, and it's happened twice. One in my tenure when I was part of the board.
Mhm.
We had an excellent banker candidate, and nothing with the present one. All of a sudden, it came in retiree, and we're like, what happened? You didn't tell us. We had a resume, we had all these things of what we wanna do. Nothing. Same thing happened last time. That's what we're trying to avoid.
That vacancy was for how long? This last one?
I'm not sure, I'm not part of the board
Well, the
anymore.
appointments are for 2 years.
No, how,
but-
the vacancy,
but
how long was it?
The vacancy was over a year, I believe, and one of the, so when that, I don't remember who stepped off or what happened, but we were missing a person. Several people said they were gonna bring candidates. And for a year, it just stayed vacant. And then one of the board members brought it up, and the next month, two different candidates were presented.
Mhm.
I mean, it was open for a whole year.
One of the reasons, if I may,
Sure.
one of the reasons that it was remain open is the board internally had been having some discussions, and most of the discussions were pushed by me.
Mhm.
And when I went in and I looked at the board composition, it included two citizens at large, and we had two retirees.
Mhm.
And we've had, maybe, and it's no secret, Chuck and I and then previous board members have discussed it to get some neutral party in there, because the way the board's supposed to, or the intention of the spirit of the composition is to get two citizens at large in there. So when we have two retirees, pretty much the votes are always skewed. We had and so that the reason it had been there for a year is because internally we had been going backwards and forwards on that, in trying to get at least one member in there that was neutral, that is not a retired firefighter. Finally, I think it was another board member, pushed the issue and said, we need to fill this position, and we move forward and filled it. Even there, we had some discussions about this exact same discussion that we're having today is in trying to do that. And we said, let's come up with some nominations. We did. There was another board member that was appointed by the mayor that also wanted to bring in, he had a recommendation. He asked the board, does anybody else have a recommendation? No recommendation was done at that time, so he talked to this individual, the individual was willing to run in, and I talked to several. It's hard to get a volunteer in their citizen. So finally, we came to the nominations. When we came to that date, we had a member that was nominated. I can't remember who nominated the current member. That was voted. So this other member, we hadn't even asked him to come into the vote yet. So we've struggled with this situation, and the only reason we're bringing it here to the table is because that's the only avenue we have at this point to have the composition in there, because if not, the votes are always going one way. There's only one person in there from the citizen appointment, the city appointment, which is me, and one for the mayor. So we just wanted some balance in the board to have the representation from all the parties that have a role in it.
We always
Or
talk
have a
about
stake.
an attorney at
So-
large or a banker,
Yes.
anything that would be non-city, non-fire, anyone, we would come to the table.
And it works with, right now, the mayor's representation is a investment person that deals with bonds and stocks. I'm appointed through the city, and we have the 3 appointed or elected firefighters, and then those 2, there's no citizen representation in that board that is a non-city or non-fire related.
So what in our contract prevents that?
What does a contract cover?
What in our contract prevents from that happening?
Nothing,
What in the current pension bylaws?
nothing.
So then, It's being brought,
It's being brought as a policy that we're proposing that
Yes, but we're-
the board.
What-
And that's why.
that's what I'm saying,
And
like,
also, the vote is always skewed, I don't see where the vote's always skewed if.
Let me tell you
The
where it's
current
so
board-
skewed. The reason the pension board, and I'm sorry, Ginger,
Sure,
I didn't
sure.
mean to do that.
Sure.
The reason we are trying to all fix the pension now is because of previous decisions that were made that were skewed. I was a finance director, part of the board, and there was so many frustrations where we knew that the decisions that were being made at the time, not anymore, not at the time, were so bad. I was outvoted every single time. We, the city, were outvoted, and we're like, oh my gosh. Now we're trying to fix it. All of us are trying to fix it, but we don't want that history to repeat itself, because it does. At the end of the day, something happens, you leave today, and then you don't know who they're gonna replace, and then it's a different mindset. And we don't want history to repeat itself.
And in addition to that, I mean, the money that we're providing to the pension through the city is actually coming from the stakeholders, the city of Rodeo. So that's why there has to be some representation from them there. I mean, we're not generating.
are we considered some of those stakeholders?
Absolutely.
And that's why you have three, you have the majority.
I know, so I'm going back to,
But there's another.
there's not,
250,000
yes.
The
There-
people, the
There's
reason
There's
is
not, there's
because,
nothing preventing from that happening right now in either one of the two.
By that,
So-
by that, I can't retire and be on the board.
right, there's nothing that prevents that, and that's why we're wanting to ensure an objective, two objective citizens. So we're asking that in
Wait,
a,
guys,
But they-
wait, guys, conversation here.
Oh, no, man, there's.
We can't.
But that's what I'm saying, like it's been there, the opportunity has been there, and it wasn't taken, it wasn't done.
right, because there was already a majority vote that could overcome.
No,
Any other
the
vote.
nominations came a year after.
So then we're asking that a policy be implemented by the board that says that to qualify to be a citizen, member of the board, that you cannot be receiving benefits or be a dependent or be the spouse or somebody that would benefit from making a decision on making those, have some sort of bias that would,
I know, and we came back even saying that, okay, we can split it, we can give another seat, if that's what we want, and even then,
But-
the dictation, like, we
I don't
can't.
know how we can override state statute. State statute doesn't even
No.
limit it doesn't limit it to a citizen of Laredo, says, of the state, a citizen of the state.
right, and we're
But-
asking for a
yeah.
policy to ensure that that citizen is an objective citizen that can provide an objective view and position and perspective on the board. Somebody that's not gonna benefit from actually voting on what benefits are gonna be given, because the board is the one that determines the
I
benefits.
think when it comes to a retiree, I don't think the benefits change as far as any votes that they have.
Their
If anything,
change can't
when it comes
benefit
to,
them.
when it comes to a retiree.
The brotherhood, you all talk about the brotherhood, it will always be there, so you will always vote together no matter what. You can't
When it
argue
comes
with
to
me
the
on that.
retire, when it comes to
You
a
just said,
retiree,
Rosario, that you've seen the change. We're trying to change the right way. If you were Tony to retire today, understanding what's going on, you don't think he's gonna go and try to continue to fix it?
We don't want to risk it.
I mean, I recall, in the middle of this last contract, we wanted to open the contract to put another 1% from our members, and the city told us no. Here we were, yes, ma'am, we were trying to be proactive
At
with,
this negotiation table?
no, it was our last contract.
Oh,
was our last contract.
okay, not here.
Yeah,
And
no, that was in
understanding
2019.
our shortage of our manpower,
Yeah.
understanding everything that's going on with our pension and trying to
Still-
fix things and be proactive for certain things. So we won't have to be doing that stuff here at this negotiation table. We've been trying to come and come with solutions for years now. And for you to tell us, well, we need to change this and we need to do that, we've been doing our part to get where we need to be. I mean, letting us open up the contract to put another 1% of my paycheck into there so we don't have to be in this situation right now. And the city telling us flat out, no. I mean, that's not being responsible. I mean, we're here trying to make it better. We're trying to make it work. And if we're getting all these roadblocks here and there, I mean,
I'm
where are
not
you
sure,
helping us?
okay, I guess for the record, whoever's seen, I'm not sure, I don't know why the city would have told you, don't contribute 1%. To me, it would be
No-brainer.
a no-brainer. I'm not sure what
To
happened
us,
back
it was
then.
a
Does it-
no-brainer.
I don't know what happened. This
And
is a
we can't-
different
I mean,
year.
Whatever happened back then.
I think they were after the 10% again.
It was right after 2019, we proposed to that current city management that let our membership at 1%, based on the raises we had received in 2018, said we can put money in and help the pension. We can ask our members to do that, and they said, no, we don't want to open up the contract at all.
Okay, I do know.
But,
I think going fast
but
forward.
I just want to say, like, because it said the vote is skewed, I mean, if you look at the ballot and what, we've worked on, we're not trying to skew it. I mean, we're giving you guys two options, and both options are, we're taking the recommendation from the actuary and says, get rid of your overtime. That's your biggest thing. Move up your drop, and we're taking those recommendations. We're not even considering them as, oh, this board doesn't want to do that. So instead, like, the vote is skewed. I don't see it skewed. I mean, we're following the recommendations and trying to look
And so,
for the health forward. I
and
mean,
let me,
And I guess I go back, Roxy, real quick,
Yeah.
because I just want to clarify, this is my personal, as a board member and as the appointed city board member in there, my goal is to have a stakeholder, a citizen representative in that board to help make the decisions. That's, I mean, I know, it's not, my intent is not so that we gain control, because we still
We're
don't
not-
have the numbers to have control of it. My main goal is that we can have stakeholders that do not get anything from it in there, and their representation in there.
I think the biggest part is, even if those changes were to be implemented and we agreed to something like that, I think both plans, we both need a 7% to get to 25, right? So majority of the cuts are coming off of firefighters' back, right? For the city to say that we're both responsible for this plan, and the city's only putting a 1% on the table when we're both responsible. We both, staffing shortages, where the city hasn't provided the amount of staffing that the firefighters need to be able to put into the pension. We've both done mistakes, right? But I think even just proposing a 1% increase, when firefighters are putting in 4.33 of cuts on one and 7%
But Tony,
of
but
cuts on the
why
other.
is that happening?
But-
Because
but
of
keep in
previous.
mind, has been helping the pension plan all along. We've had increases of 8% in the last 2 or 3 contracts. So the city has continuously been putting money.
And how much has
the
a firefighter put in?
It's
The
only,
firefighters have
1%.
increased as well.
1%.
They have,
How much did y'all raise?
Within the
Social
last time, it
Security?
was 1%.
How much was social security raised for the city employees?
that's a
This year.
That's a
Social
different
Security.
situation. That's a
It's
different.
retirement.
Now, think about this, guys. So let's just pretend the tables were turned and, what is it, Telefer, that we're governed by on this,
Yes.
Telefer, okay, would say it's 3 citizens, 3 city employees, 2 citizens, and 2 firefighters. I think that if you're sitting on that side of the table, if the table would be reversed, you'd be asking for the same thing. It's like, hey, we want some true balanced, I guess, presentation. That's all we're asking for.
Well,
Because if the tables were reversed,
No, no,
we'd be asking for the
and
same
I
thing.
understand what
To
you're
reverse
saying.
the state statute?
I think that,
The state
that,
statute, we're not asking to violate the state
And I
statute, but
think-
it's just like I say, you know what, let me get two retired ex-city employees to come in and sit,
I think-
and we'd be like,
I think, Ms. Cabello, I think it's a offer that we felt that you were serious about, having the discussion. I think, putting in a fair share as far as the 2.67, instead of just the 1%, it'd be more of a serious discussion than what we're.
but you
currently, right?
didn't bring it back to the table because you didn't know if we were gonna counter or not, or what we were gonna do based on whatever you were gonna bring to us.
Well,
We'd say, okay, you know what, they're meeting us halfway somewhere, let's meet them somewhere else. You didn't even do that.
We
No,
even said we would
we
do
countered.
subcommittees for this, and we didn't even meet.
We countered for this. We
You said you
countered-
would come back with something and you didn't. That's the question, that's the whole point. You didn't.
And if I may, Mr. Chapa, isn't there a third option for that vote? No change?
yeah,
Well, that's
That one has to be
always,
there.
that's always on the table. That's not something we wanted to do. The actuary, the attorney told us it has to be on there as an option.
So,
It's not something that we
what's
want to
to
leave it
stop?
up to the membership.
So-
We're
so-
recommending the changes
We did
for the
recommend,
betterment.
if contingent on plan 1 or plan 2, being the recommendation and getting voted in. We did say that we agreed with that. you know, we don't want the city to put in 2.67 and then guys, the membership vote present plan, right? So I don't know if that's what we're.
And we
So
can
the
come to-
question I have is if Plan A or Plan B get voted in, which are the changes? And I guess it's another vote whether the firefighters contribute an additional 1%. Is that a separate
It's a
vote?
separate
It's
item,
a-
yes.
It's a separate item. If those two pass, and not considering any additional contribution by the city, does that get the fund to where the actuarial goal is, which is less than 30? Without considering an additional,
1% from the city?
any additional contribution from the city. If you did Plan A or Plan B with the benefit changes and the additional 1% from the firefighters, does that capture the, or get you to the actuarial goal?
1%, or not with that.
Plan A
From the
gets you there.
firefighters.
Plan A gets you there automatically without the 1%, but it's bigger cuts. Like I said, it's a 7% cuts just on firefighters back, right? So Plan B gets you to 33 years.
33, and then the firefighters vote at 1%, and that gets you to 20.
So you could potentially get to the actuarial goal that you need to be without an additional contribution from the city. Is that right? If you vote Plan A or Plan B, and Plan A even without the 1%, and Plan B would require an additional 1% from the firefighters, right?
Correct.
So then you're already there and that's why our 1% is contingent, that we have on the table right now, is contingent on that being a condition in addition to the citizens. So that would actually help further the healthiness of the plan and move further, be better than, you would already reach the goal of where the actuary said you need to be. And then with our 1%, it would just put you in a healthier place. Is that right?
Yes.
I think overall, even if present plan gets voted in, you know, I think it's something where, you know, you're mandated by the state to change it, you know, and if no changes go through, it's something that we're both basically on the hook for, right?
The board goes back to the drawing board and comes up with another proposal.
Okay. So then, so we've already have that proposal on the table, which shows that we're considering it. These are the items that we placed. And I know that the vote is coming in and we're talking about it, and our proposal wasn't 0. It wasn't like, no, we're not gonna do anything. So why, you know, it would be, I don't know that why did the membership have to get a commitment from us for a whole 2.67 when they don't need that commitment if they make the benefit changes themselves? I'm just asking this as a general question.
Sure. So the goal of the board wasn't to just pass that threshold of 30, it was to get to 25, to get to a better footing. And we just came up with 2 options for membership. If we thought, what if we can't get them to cut 7%? Or do they won't agree to that, to get to 25? Because we don't want to current board just doesn't want to get to 30. It wants to be way better for a year like this year. We've lost $20 million because the stock market's tanking, right? So with inflation rising, so we want to have that cushion. So when we have that next actuary, we had a 5-year cushion. And that's what we're trying to get to. And if membership votes in Plan 1, it gets to 25 on their own, and they give us 1% more, and the city gives us something more, it's always better footing. I heard you guys mention the city has increased 8%. 8% since when? 2001. I have a list. I'll send you a copy.
Can we
Okay,
talk
'cause-
for 5 minutes?
Yeah, can we have it for 5 minutes? Is Victor coming or is he gone?
I think he's occupied now, so that's fine.
Okay. I didn't know if
No,
you
he's
wanted
not
to
gone,
wait.
but I think he had to take care of something.
Okay. Okay, the city's here in good faith and we realize that the vote is next week. We have a counter proposal on the table. You counter propose back with the 2.67. I think that, the city, I don't have anything in writing, but I'm gonna make a counter proposal orally on the record. And then we'll memorialize it in writing and I can, send it to you.
Okay.
But this is going to be our counter proposal. And this counter proposal, we, like I said, we look at the total economic package. So this is not standalone. This will affect what the money and that we have for all the other economic items. So when we continue bargaining, this is gonna be part of the package, of the economic proposal. But for, you know, for what you need, and we want to help you with the pension, address the pension. The city is willing to do a total of, okay, a total of an additional 1.5% spread evenly of the proposed 5 years of the contract. And the conditions are that the membership vote, the city will contribute that on the condition that the membership vote for Plan A, that they approve the Plan A for the benefit changes. They approve an additional 1% by the firefighters contribution as well. That the board pass a policy that the two citizens be objective citizens if we have requested and have advised that they don't have a tie or don't receive any kind of benefits from the pension itself, and that there's no, throughout the term of the contract, which is a proposed 5 years at this point, that there are no benefit increases that happen during the term of the contract.
I guess for clarification, it's an additional 1.5 and in addition to the 1%? Or is
No,
it
a total of
1.5?
1.5%.
For the record, it's Plan 1. It's considered Plan 1, not Plan A.
Okay. But Plan 1, the one that has that would get you to that, I think 25 years amortization just on the plan its own. But what we're asking is for that 1.5% spread across the 5 years evenly. However, that is divided evenly. The condition would be the approval of Plan 1, the approval of 1% additional contribution by the firefighters, the two objective citizen members of the board that have no ties to the benefits, and no benefit increases to the plan during the term of the 5 years. So we're making that as a verbal counter proposal. I will solidify that in writing. It'll reflect that we're making it today on September 22nd, 2022 at 6:15 p.m. And this is for Article 30.
Now, just for clarification, on that policy, because we're pretty much saying it's a policy of the board, but I guess we cannot supersede state statute.
It doesn't supersede
No,
state statute.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying
Right.
we are, but I'm just saying, if, like she said, in a future board, they do it, what's,
This is duration for a 5-year contract.
okay. But I'm saying that language is gonna be in Article 30 till,
For 5 years, so you negotiate again.
no, I mean, I understand the negotiation part and the board creating this policy, but I'm saying what's holding that policy in place if state statute says different? And I'm asking this question because when we were looking at making changes to our plan, we thought about increasing our guys' years of service from 20 to 21, 23, making them stay longer, not just raising the drop, because raising that drop only affects the younger guys. So when you make changes, if it affects more people, the change is greater, right? So we said, if we change our guys from 20 years of service to 23, it affects all of us, right? But the attorney said, and the actuary told us as well, state statute says it's 20, you can't change it. You can't change that, so we changed the age. And what I'm saying is, when y'all propose this, I did ask Mr. Hassel, the administrator, said, ask the attorney, can we do this? Can we do this policy? And the attorney said, no, I'd advise against doing this policy.
What policy? The policy
The
for
policy-
the two member?
Yeah, 2 members. And he's the one that said, look, state statutes, read the state statute, it tells you how the board makeup is.
Right, and we're not asking for the makeup of the board to be changed.
No, but it said like 2 citizens of the state. So
Yes.
his advice that he gave Mr. Hassel was, you cannot change state statute unless you go through a vote with the state.
Right.
And he said, I would advise you have anything in place that goes against it, because someone then can challenge you.
So would you be open to say, as permitted by the state, as permitted by statute, like something that says, if the statute changes, then we change with it? Right?
Who's and the attorney offered this opinion? Will they offer it in writing?
I'm sure he would say, I mean, Mr. Hassel gave him a call and asked him, and I forgot to mention it during the comment section that we had. It was on my mind to bring up what Joe had mentioned, but like I said, Mr. Hassel spoke to the attorney. I didn't, but he said, he would advise against, as board as their client, the pension saying, I would advise for you guys to do that. And then he went on to mention the union cannot tell this other board what to do or how to do it, right? So, I mean,
Right,
that's
but
just a concern that someone
Right.
else, just if we here at the table say, oh yeah, we'll do this. And this is still, like you said, Plan One, contingent that our membership vote for Plan One. Because honestly, I can truly say they're not gonna vote for no change, but I can't tell you whether they're gonna pick 1 or 2, I don't know. I don't know.
And just like the firefighters are looking, the membership of the pensions looking for a commitment from the city is also looking for a
Sure.
commitment from the membership as well.
Of course.
So, and I think that's mutual. Now, as to the legal issues, of course, our proposal on the objective citizens would be subject to whatever the law allows us to do, and I'll do further research, but I didn't find anything that prohibited us from doing that. And I did not find that it was in violation or in contradiction to the statute saying that the board makeup is of 2 citizens of the state of Texas. I think that if the board has a policy, and I can discuss that, and I'd be happy to visit with the pension attorney if I can get that information, and we can discuss it and talk about the different factors, of different facts and situations really impact and the analyzation of legal issues. So we can get on the same boat about that and discuss it. I'd be happy to do that. But from the city's perspective, if allowed by law and as not prohibited by law and still within the statute that this pension is run under, we're looking for a policy to be implemented that would ensure that there is 2 objective citizens on the board that will be able to provide perspective and opinions where they don't have any personal benefit from the pension. So
So the pension will be able to supersede the state law. Right.
that's not what I said.
No, that's not what she said.
That's not what I
But
said.
the policy is gonna state the wording that you all want, so we can.
Yeah, I just said that we would pursue it to whatever is allowed by law.
Mhm.
And that we will work out the legal issues, because when you're looking at legal issues, different facts and situations have to be, they really impact an analysis of what the law is or how it applies to a certain scenario. But what the city is looking for is a policy that there's an objective citizen, two members that don't personally benefit from the board, that, or when the board's making decisions on benefits and things like that. And so whatever is allowed by state law and within that, and I would like to work out those legal issues with the pension attorney, if I can get that information, that we would do that. But that's what the city's looking for. I didn't see anything that prohibited it. I'd be happy to discuss that further with the pension attorney,
See,
but we are not seeking to supersede the state law with regard to the pension. We're seeking to work within it. And it has the makeup of the board.
And the last thing, like, what I don't wanna see is that we do something like this, and at the end of the day, we're tied up in litigation now, and that's gonna have to come out now from the pension fund, which we're trying to make solvent, we're trying to make whole. And if that person that brings a case towards a pension plan says, hey, you know what, you're discriminating for me, and I have the right to be on this board, well, I mean, that's the last thing that we want to see happen, right? And I think we're both in agreement that we're trying to move in the direction toward, we're making the.
Our intention is not to create litigation, is to create an objective board within the law that is allowed. So.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and caucus over this.
Okay.
Okay, we're back from caucus. We went over and talked about the counter proposal for Article 30. The issues that this raises is that it holds our members to vote for one plan and one plan only. On top of that, if they vote that one plan with the additional 1%, but the last contingency about the members on the board, if the board that's not here at the table votes it down, what we just showed our members is an empty promise. Because from my understanding of what you said is that 1.5 over 5 years is contingent only on Plan 1 being voted in, with the members also contributing 1%, and the board complying with what was written here, or what is being proposed here.
Right, the two.
If any one of
Two
those,
citizens and the no benefit changes within the contract term.
yeah, if any one of those is not met, the 1.5 is off the board.
Yes.
And what we put towards them, what we putting out towards a membership coming their vote next week will be an empty promise.
It's not an empty promise, this is the condition of the additional monies that we're gonna put into the pension. The city's already contributing, how much percent into the pension a year?
21.8.
21.10? So the city's already putting in 21.10%. The membership has said that they're committed to making changes to bring the fund back into a healthy state, bring the amortization rate, or the years of amortization to under 30. Plan 1 reaches 25, I think, or 25 years with just the voting of that plan, and that accomplishes the goal of not only the actuary, but the board, which voted to get it close to 25, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so in addition to that, to keep the plan the plan healthy and funded, the members should also commit to the 1% additional on their end. And we expect the board to, on condition of asking for this additional money, to vote for the two objective citizens, and that there's no benefit changes or no benefit increases during the term of the contract, because why, it would be an empty promise for us to put money into the pension, and then in a couple of years before the end of the contract, then it goes back to the way it was before and create the problem all over again. And that is a possibility. So that's what we're asking for, is a commitment to maintain and to move forward on getting a hold of this fund and making it healthy.
So benefiting increase, I don't see that happening. One, and it's not an issue to do that. One, it's already in our plan that only 14% of the money contributions is counted toward benefit increase, which pretty much eliminates that unless we are super healthy. That's one. The concern on that policy is that it's a board that's not here at the table, and the attorney's not here at the table, and the attorney advises the board members, don't consider this, or vote against this, or it's, whatever the case may be that he might advise, is, what we're saying is, we've already asked our members to vote on Plan A, and then it doesn't fall through. The part about not doing benefit increases, I don't see that happening, that's not an issue. That's easy, the membership is gonna vote it, and they're gonna say, we did all this, like you said, just to go back to square one. I don't see that happening. But the concern is this policy and being placed on that.
With, about the
external-
two citizens, and the
on
contingency.
On the external board that's not here, and the advisement of the attorney as well would hinge on it.
And
say,
there
you
was
shouldn't do this. That's
the
the concern.
proposal was within the law, within what the law allows, so we do need to have, and I'd be willing to have that conversation with him tomorrow. Or, the attorney tomorrow or Monday or whatever, the soonest is that I can speak with that attorney. But it's within the law. If it is clear that the law does not allow that, then we're not going to violate the
Item
law.
is not in the table.
Yeah, then we're not gonna violate the law, but within, as whatever policy can be passed by the board to ensure some sort of objectiveness that is within the law that governs the pension, that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for a violation of the law. We're looking for an objective perspective from a citizen who does not personally benefit from the decisions that this board makes. And that's what we're seeking, just a fairness to the board. And so we can have that. I think it's additional money that we're putting in. And so we have these conditions that we're making a commitment. We expect a commitment to be made from the membership. And how many firefighters are on the board? There's 3, right? Three firefighters, 2 citizens, and then 2 appointees, right? City appointees. So the citizen part is subject to the legal issues, and if it's not allowed by law, we're not asking to violate the law. So, but what we're asking for is some sort of fairness and objectivity to those 2 positions.
This would also get you closer to where the pension board needs to be.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Because it's like we're saying, you guys vote for one, it gets you to 25. The city's gonna put this much, so I think there would be more of an incentive for everybody to get where we need to be.
Yeah, I mean, as a board member, I know other guys have asked, if we put more, what are your plans with that? With going below your target, getting that lower amortization. And my response has been our expected rate of return to go below 7. Because one of the reasons we're on this is because as a board, we went from 8 to 7.4 now, or 7.5 somewhere.
More
7.4.
reasonable,
Yeah.
more expectations.
So
for them.
we lowered it a lot, but we made that decision when we were about 43. We said, we're already on the wrong side of where we should be. Why not just blow it up and let's fix it? And that's why we went from 8 to 7.4, I think it is. So we went 7.5, and I think we decided another point after that. So we're at there 7.4, 7.5, but that was part of the reason we got to 57 was we're trying to get more realistic expectations.
Yeah.
And my personal goal is to get like 6.75, so we can meet that and be on a right course. And like we said, bringing the to our membership to get rid of overtime is a huge thing. From our young guys to our old guys, they don't like it, but they know they're gonna swallow that pill. But, it's hard to say, guys, vote for this plan, but then some other expectation on all those demands is not met, and now, you know, what are we, we're gonna respond to our membership? Or they vote down the contract because they don't like some other aspect. You know, we're talking about getting rid of the incentives, and then the minimal raise and stuff like that. So it's like, we have a lot of things on the table. If it doesn't pass, what's gonna happen?
If I may, I think there needs to be a clarification. We're not asking to get rid of incentives. It's about, you're talking about the ad pays, right?
Sure.
It's about the percentages. Now, I kind of want to analogize these two things. You guys are very concerned about the health of your fund, right?
Mhm.
Because it does so many things. It pays for all the things that you need to have when you retire, correct? A similar fund is that of the city. It is not an infinite amount of resources, and it pays for a lot of other things as well. So there are certain hard decisions that need to be made in order for that fund to be healthy, to pay for everything that you all have as firefighters. And when we say that ad pays are a problem, they're a problem, especially the percentages. And in saying that, we're not saying we're gonna de-incentivize you to get certifications and be better firefighters. We're just asking you for something in return, so that we can keep those funds healthy, at healthy levels. That's all it is. It's all about balance, and that's what we're asking for.
You're asking for something and offering what in return?
We're offering to give more money to the pension.
We put 2.67 down on the table. So-
Right, and that's, you put 2.67 down for both of your counter proposals, and you never went down. This is a negotiation, we started with 1, we've gone up to 1.5. Of course, with it, we have conditions on all of them, but we've also placed other proposals on the table that equal to $11 million in new money over 5 years. And so, and what we're asking for, we have, the things that we're asking for, we have actually placed value in terms of money, actual new monies on the table. And that's what we have placed on the table. We have, you know, I can go down, there's some tentative agreements where we've accepted what your proposals were at the very beginning, and even the other, you know, the other day we did the 60 shift for the acting pay, you know, things like that. And so we're here in good faith. We've placed, you know, we didn't start from zero. We didn't start from scratch. We're not nickel and diming, because we know we don't have the time, and we know that it's in the best interest of everybody to let's work out an agreement, and that's why we're here, and that's why we have what we've placed on the table. We're very far apart in terms of.
But we have come down. We already knocked off immediately a $10 million hit on the proposed raises. We've already just removed just today 700,000 off the table. Like, we're working.
Today was 700,000 from what?
Uniform.
From the uniforms.
We haven't agreed on uniforms. Have we?
Yeah,
No, we're gonna,
I think you were gonna,
We
do we
counter,
agree to no
Oh,
not to
change?
increase.
Yeah,
Not to increase, not to increase.
right.
But it's, like she said, it's a negotiation. Hasn't been anything reduced.
So we need to reduce pay and benefits to
We're not
get
saying
some.
that, but you're saying.
Well, that's what you're saying.
Well, what you're saying is, let's only go up,
Mhm.
And we're trying to,
And we've offered to go up. I mean, we're not going backwards.
I mean, I think we have gone down. We were supposed to take a 7.5% hit. We're taking a 4.9 in benefit changes and reducing them. And all we're asking for is for you all to put 2.6. I mean, these are benefits that we're supposed to be taking for the rest of our life once we separate from the department, that are not gonna be there anymore.
Right, that were voted on by the board,
There hasn't been voted on yet.
but the current benefits, the state of how the pension arrived to where it's at,
Well, like I said,
right?
we can talk about the last contract where we asked the city, knowing that we didn't have the manpower, they could put, since the FTEs are already in the budget, that they could put the city's portion and the firefighters' portion into the pension to help make it solvent.
It's
And the
against,
city-
it's
city's
against
overcome.
the Texas Constitution to give gifts or pay for things that, you know, that are outside of the, you can't give gifts like that outside of the contract, but for, you know, when
But
you
then-
keep bringing up the
But then
FTEs
we
that we're
can't get it
missing.
hired either, because at the end of the day, it's up to the city whether they allow them to be hired, even though those positions are there.
And you know that the reason that we have vacancies, we don't have a problem attracting people to come to the academies. We get over 1,000 applications for every academy that has 60 cadets, that we can only have 60 cadets, right? And we had COVID, which was out of anybody's control. And so, as I
We still had
understand,
800 testimonies.
as I understand, that a lot of the vacancies were a result of things that were outside the control of the city at that point. And so to, you know, talk about that, and just because of those vacancies, that did not put the pension in the situation it is in today.
Well,
That was a
I've
long
been
term.
here where FTEs were supposed to be 363 and we're at 300. So you have 60 guys not putting in their portion along with the city portion. And still, and even like that,
And
there
yet
were no plans to hire them either.
and the board knew this, but yet you know, the benefits kept going, and the same, you know, the same thing kept going. Adjustments were made to the pension as those things were happening. So,
We
what we're
had
asking
an
now,
article in
and
the
we're here,
contract where we were gonna get
and-
more money, and that was not gonna be. for
and if we can
benefit change.
rehash the past when we weren't here, and we can rehash that as much as you want, but we're here today, and we have placed money on the table today to help you address the pension issue. And that's what we're talking about, what we're doing today, and that's, we want to move forward.
Okay, we had a 7.5, we took a 4.9 benefit once we made these changes, and this election is coming up. We're just asking you to help us out, and it's more than, less than the middle, because we're taking the bigger hit.
The city's already putting 21.10% in the pension every year. That's an estimated $9 million,
Okay,
right?
for a city.
And then now
employee,
you're
they put in close
asking
to
for an
28%.
additional, huh?
For a city employee, they put close to, once it's said and done with social security and everything else, they put about 28%.
But Aidan, you know what a city retiree leaves when they retire? Sometimes not even $500 a month.
With how many years of service?
20 years, that's how they can retire. For payment on a monthly basis.
You definitely get 60% of your pay.
Oh, not even,
That's-
not even
or
50.
not even 50.
I think you factor in, there's a lot of factors that go in it, you know, how much money do they put in, you know, I think, you know, we're not here to
Well,
talk about.
no, because he mentioned that. He says, well, how much does the city put in?
Well, the firefighter doesn't qualify for social security.
No, but you're looking at the end of the day, what you take home, right? And so
So
even if they put, even if we would put 50%, we're not even half as close as to the listing that you provided today on what you take home.
I think overall, I think we could go back and forth, you know.
Yeah, like,
all night,
you
you
accept
know,
it or
with-
not, or
with-
not
with
accept the
this.
counter.
So I think
And I think a lot falls still, I mean, and like you all said, it's a package. I mean, we still don't know what we're doing on incentives, and we don't know where we're at.
And that's what we-
There's still counters for that,
Correct.
that we're waiting on.
So that's why we came to
Well,
you
that's why-
very last minute and we said, okay, you know what, we don't want them to leave in good faith, this is what we can do. You accept it or you don't.
or as far as asking, we're accepting this offer, or is it something, is that what's being asked, or? As far as this, just to make sure, right, to clarification, are you asking?
This is our counter
Oh,
proposal.
that's the counter.
This
but-
is the counter
Yeah.
proposal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, but it's not a contingent, take it right now, or,
No,
Is
this is
that
our
what you're saying?
counter
Oh, okay.
proposal.
For
No.
Article
Yeah.
30.
Yeah, for Article 30.
okay, I guess we can move on, and, I guess we can maybe move on to discussion on the extension,
Okay,
and
one thing,
possibly
was-
agree on some dates as well, I know.
there was one, I was looking for the costing of the union's proposals. For some reason, I can't find them. The city's at $11 million, and the union had initially come in at 67 million of new monies over 5 years. And I know that you went off of 10 million, but you're still in a $50 million range of new monies over 5 years.
I think there was, as far as,
That's
I think it was,
that's
the
without
staff- I think majority of it was the staffing article, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, the staffing article is 32 million, so even then, you're still at,
Right.
57, you're probably about, whatever 57 is minus 32, 25 million.
You wanna address it right now?
No, we're just saying,
Which one, the staffing article?
We can look at the money right now and start, shooting off.
you have counters?
This is the last counter we had was,
No, she's talking about the gifts today.
Oh, I got. And then this is what they said, the pension would be, you do it evenly.
Mhm.
And this is what we propose.
yeah, but they're saying this number.
Well, yeah.
Because of the staffing.
We haven't covered the
Yeah.
pension this one because it was part of the economic.
And then it's
So on Article 12 on that staffing, we haven't countered because we were taking it all, as we said, and as we said, it's the last several meetings that we're looking at the total economic package. And so if there's any amendments that you would want to make on Article 12 with regard to the requested minimum staffing that you have, we'd be happy to accept that. Right, or look at, or consider them, rather.
We can do a verbal right now if you want,
On Article 12,
on Article 12.
let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. Okay.
I thought we were going to talk about dates.
Let's see what they have on the counter on this, and then we'll talk about the extension and dates.
A little bit mixed up in my paper, man. Now, in Article 12, the big ticket item on that one is apparently the 40 additional FTEs that the city states will need to be hired by changing the desired to minimum strength. If the city is just willing to reflect the proper FTEs as being hired by additional units from here on out, we'd be willing to do away with the minimum strength to leave as is.
Okay, say that again, if the city,
What, 39, oh, I'm sorry, 40, what?
12.
it's Article
I'm sorry.
12.
It's on
I'm sorry,
Article
it was
12.
40.
No, it's Article 12, and all we're saying is leave the staffing as far as the engines to 3 minimum that is currently, but just fix the FTEs that we believe we might have added units since the last contract.
From 407. or what?
I thought, I believe,
And we can, I
Jesus,
guess,
would you be able
comment.
to help me with, I believe that all the units that we have added to date have been properly staffed.
Yeah, I had a conversation with the chief, and we kind of went back on that. And with the last academy, the 24 that we had, and I went back to my old contract, I had a notation there in that contract that I had a +9 that was required to be filled with that academy, that we had, that 24 that came in from the grant. So I think that was broken down by the 9 for that one of those units, like you mentioned.
The ambulance, 911.
Yeah, and then the rest came in, so the way we figured it out, we should be fine.
At 407.
Yes, at 407. I know that she has a little summary for that we can go over.
If I remember correctly, I know that we were gonna open up, I think it was Unitech, or back then, a station, so we
started the academy for that. We never opened it up, we never did it. So we had those individuals.
But the units were put into service.
Yeah, we put in an
Because you were
aerial.
short before, or something like that.
Yeah, we put, so that ambulance and fire truck that were gonna be there, we ended up putting aerial in South Laredo
404.
and the ambulance on the north side. Yeah. But that was after the contract, so we're just saying to verify that we have the FTEs according to the units, that's all.
And we did you show on the spreadsheet?
No, I don't, let me see if I have it here. I know I went over with a sheet and we went.
I have it in print.
I should have it here, so let me.
So it's eliminates that 32 million off the table.
Also, I believe the city's aware of the hiring procedure for activation of any new units.
Mhm.
And you want to just put that in there for future reference.
I think that word is still, it's already in there.
No.
Yeah, it should be in there.
It's subject to Article 6, rights of management, when any additional units and or companies are added. Is that the one you're referring to? Well, I have the proposal. Would you come looking at the proposal?
It's letter E. Service.
It's under 12.3.
Or 12.3, letter D.
Letter E. You could clarify 9 and 15.
That's what I'm saying, like, we both have the understanding of what,
9 and 15.
yeah,
It's just not written.
yeah, you want to just put that in writing just to make sure.
Letter E?
Letter E.
You can add them to their E.
Unit and what companies are added, and this article, the minimum pay scale employees will be adjusted appropriately, and the city shall maintain the same minimum.
It just doesn't address the actual number.
What appropriate, kind of defining appropriately, so 9 for ambulances, 15 for
any fire
apparatus,
unit.
fire truck.
You want to add what to that?
Just, I guess what we're following, so whenever we open up an ambulance, they hire 9 FTEs. And when we open up an apparatus, we hire 15 FTEs.
Which is like,
That's what
it
we're
is
currently
reflected
doing.
by current practice, the city recognizes it, it's just, the numbers aren't there.
Yeah,
No, I'm saying that the numbers don't, the specific wording.
Specific amount of, or,
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
that are so many,
Yeah.
that are so many,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay.
And it's just defining, I mean, it's a practice that's been going on, but just defining it.
So your proposal is to
Strike the.
on
Strike the
Article
whole
12,
stuff.
leave everything the same,
Except for E.
except for add some on
Clarification.
E, the one that says subject to Article 6, rights of management. You want to add in there what is currently being staffed for each unit. Like 9 FTEs for what?
An
The
ambulance.
ambulance, and then
Is that the
15,
minimum staffing or?
and 15 for the
Any apparatus.
Any-
Fire truck,
Fire.
aerial truck, or you can say apparatus.
Just fire
fire
apparatus.
apparatus. Okay.
in your proposal, you had G, H, and I, which was a total of 11 FTEs.
Yeah, we're going to strike that.
You just mentioned the minimum only.
Oh,
Just wanted to
yeah,
Double
no,
check,
it-
and confirm.
Yeah, just sticking to the first one.
Okay.
Okay.
What, so if you don't mind, I know that's proposals on the table, so that would eliminate the 32 million off of that.
Yeah.
So we'll cost, if, I'm gonna send you the article that we verbally did on on Article 30. And if you will draft the article and email it to me,
Article 12.
on Article 12, that way we have it, and just mark it that it was presented at, today, 9/22/2022, and we'll say it was like, 7 PM. And that way you can send it to me and we can recost what all our proposals are on the table, and we can provide you the current costs as they're going.
Okay.
So we're working
Okay.
with you.
Okay,
Oh, here it is, I found it. Did you find it, Jesus?
Yes.
I thought we sent that to
Oh,
them, right?
no, there was another one, Mr. Villa, he sent, I'm working on the.
Oh, there's another one?
Yeah, there's another one where we look at we looked at the 24 and the breakdown of those 24 for those 2 units.
Oh,
Okay,
As a roster.
yeah, it's a
Okay.
roster.
and what I'll also do is, so I'm going, okay. And since we discussed this as a table, we just need to exchange the documentation, but I will prepare the TA for Article 18, prepare the counter proposal, the City of Laredo's counter proposal for 30 that was verbally given. And then the fire union will prepare and send over by email their counter proposal for 12 as they verbally gave. Okay. So we can do that. Do you want to discuss the extension and then the next dates?
We had discussed the dates, you remember?
Yeah,
We had already kind of set a date.
September 29th is the
Yeah,
last date.
that's the date that you had said.
700.
I wasn't gonna be here half the day.
right, but we can still do, we're still looking to work out the 29th. And then I think I'm gonna have to get back to you, but for the next week, it's either gonna be October 6th or 7th. And maybe even both. I'm gonna try and do
Yeah, I
that.
was gonna say, I was gonna ask, is
So-
there a way we can do both?
Yeah, I'm gonna try, I need to, I have some hearings and I have a couple of other obligations that I need to make sure that I can either move or not on that date, so the tentative dates we're looking at are the 29th. And then let's look at October 6th and 7th. And even if we do like we did the last time where we start in the afternoon of the 6th, if not, if we can't do 2 full days, we try to at least do 1.5.
Yeah, because I do have some commitments in the morning on the 6th, but if anything, I'll step up.
Okay. Kind of like how we did
10,
that,
6, and 7, right? Is what you're
yes.
saying.
So 9/22 and then 10, 6, and 7.
9/20
Oh, sorry, 9/29, today is the
Wait, wait, wait.
22. I'm not going back in
I'm gonna go
time.
back in time. Easy, Marty McFly. The reference. What do you got that reference?
Okay, with those dates, are we gonna do an impasse extension agreement?
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
okay. I will. You need a pen?
Yeah, instead of a purple.
I have a,
Thank you.
I'll have Oscar's name on there, so you just cross it out, whoever's gonna sign on the,
Okay.
oh, sorry.
Here, here. I'll hold my purple.
I'm okay.
Did we agree on the time?
The 29th?
I wanna try to do the 10 a.m.
Okay.
If I can, I'll try to do 9 a.m. and just see what I can work out, but no later than 10.
10 a.m. Okay.
And then let me confirm that we can do, it looks like it's probably gonna be the 6th, an afternoon session on the 6th and then a full day on the 7th. If I'm already here, then we can probably start at 9. Yes. Here we go.
Oh, you did 2 American.
Yeah.
No, no,
Oh,
there is 2.
Sorry.
Can we do one?
Yeah, we can, I don't mind. I don't mind at all.
I'm just joking.
You're working hard over there too.
I'm trying to do his name.
I was trying to make it pretty.
I apologize, I had it pre-printed.
No, it's fine.
On the pension, we still do the 267 across the 5 years?
That one we gave,
I'm trying to cost your proposal.
Well, that
I mean,
that one
if it
give you-
helps, if it helps, you could do it at the end, I mean.
you know, the
I think
last,
they did the last,
It's
2 through
recognized,
5.
the pension recognizes as long as it's agreed upon in a.
we even
in the
said,
agreement.
you can do the last
3
3
years.
years.
I think the cost, you had proposed the last,
3 years.
oh, the last 3
Well, you
years.
have presented the last 4.
Yeah, the last
The
four.
last
But then we
presentation we had
covered
done was
the
the
last
last
3.
4, but
Right.
we were in,
We
I'm not sure we
covered
brought
the
it
last
up.
3.
Talked about all the 5, and then we talked on the 2 in the middle, so.
Yeah, we could. we
We're
could do
just
the last-
costing what's on the table right now,
We could do the
and I
last
think
3 years.
Last 3 years?
The last 3.
Okay.
Any minute now, sir. Where's the what? Show me the what? Hey, where's the short guy supposed to be doing this?
He's not here. I took his place. They outsourced.
Thank you. It looks nice.
It took me long enough.
You have very nice handwriting.
Thank you.
That's a negotiation
No.
tactic. She's buttering you up.
Yeah, we were talking about, but I
Because our
cannot do the
generation took
26th.
handwriting
That's
classes,
this
so-
The
Monday.
26th is the last,
Oh,
it
it was
runs
the
out.
deadline, so that's why we
It runs
rescinded
out of
it.
that. It's the last extension.
Yeah. I don't do that.
I did
Oh
too, and I
gosh,
got
need to
carpal tunnel
organize
from
it.
it.
I need to put this in my notebook.
Okay, so, just to be clear, the 29th was 10 AM?
Yes.
And
We
the
can do
6th
9,
was-
or we do 9.
The 6th, we're gonna start at 1 PM. Yeah.
The 7th is gonna be
And the 7th, we can probably do at 9. I'll be here, like, since it's, I'll be here and I won't have to be driving in, so we can probably start at 9.
And on the 10th is also tentatively at 10 AM, or
Which one?
The 7th.
the 7th?
6 and 7?
The 7th, she said,
6 and 7.
6 and
she
7.
said 7th, you can do 9. 9,
Yeah,
right?
And the
7 and
6th.
9.
And the 6th was at 1.
So we're looking at 29th, 6 and
Yes,
7.
ma'am.
So we have September 29th, 10 AM, October 6th, 1 PM, and October 7th, 9 AM.
That says cheap.
The next.
It's the automation.
You can take off the coat.
It must be warm because I'm comfortable, so. that's cold.
Yeah, I'm hot.
Um,
Okay, is there anything else for today?
Nope.
Okay, we'll work on our stuff and, I'll get you the tentative agreement and the
And I'll get
counter
you the
proposal
one.
on 30, you get me the one on,
12.
12. And we'll work on the costing that we discussed this afternoon. Okay. Very good. Okay, we're ready to adjourn? Okay, all right. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
I see football.